Hello and welcome to the Warhammer Podcast, episode 171. I'm your host, Brad. This is my co-host, Eric.
How's it going?
And because he will not leave my basement, Bricky is back.
No, that's Berilio. I'm not in the basement. I'm in the attic.
I'm in your walls.
I'm staring down at you from the ceiling, watching you eat dinner, asking you why you haven't shilled more merch.
But yeah, merch.
Yeah, go buy some merchandise though, right?
Yeah, Warhammer.com.
Yay!
All right, we're going to have a peaceful conversation today in which no voices will be raised. The coldest takes will occur, and we are discussing 11th edition leaks in detail a year early, given to us by Games Workshop.
We're checking out some hot leaks, live leak stuff. No cap, on God, for real, and bussin'.
This is going to be predictions, expectations, and wishes for 11th edition. So without any further ado, let's get to it.
Sounds good.
This is all staying in the video, by the way.
Oh no.
We can't discuss that in video.
All right, audio audience, do not tell the video audience about the funny bits that are not in the video.
You can't say that in the YouTube comments. We'll lose money. All right, apparently we have warnings and setup for this.
So I wrote show notes for almost 12 straight hours and did not finish the assignment. Eric also did several hours worth of show notes for his takes, and Bricky is here. But because of this, I want to take a very serious moment to discuss the actual rules of engagement here so that no one gets overly fussy with what we're throwing out there. It is impossible for us to hit every topic during this episode that is likely going to come up in GW when they're doing an 11th edition design. The length of a single afternoon meeting is enough to cover like literally one of these topics once, and then it will get revisited for 3 weeks.
Yeah, I really hope that GW spent more than a day or two.
And GW is going to continue working on 11th edition for another like 3 to 6 months after this episode airs before it all gets sent to the printers and everything. They do a lot more work making these actual editions than we are spitballing this in an afternoon.
Those who cannot make critique.
Correct. And those who cannot critique post-Sturm Tiger memes. So number 2 here is there is no way anything you're about to hear is more than like 20% correct. This is just us spitballing, taking educated guesses, throwing in some hopes, throwing in some, man, this would be really fun to test. This is just us throwing stuff out there based on the fact that 10th learned things from AOS 3rd, AOS 4th stole a lot of the good stuff from 10th and then refined it. I'm sure 11th is going to do the same to 4th. You'll hear all of this as baselines for where we expect 11th edition to go. But even with all of that as a basis, this is us just throwing ideas out there. But that's half the fun of these discussions, is coming back to it in a year and being like, holy shit, we were so wrong about this, but man, we were prophetic on this one.
Yeah, so like some of the stuff is, yeah, we're going to try and think of like what GW is actually going to do. But then there's also just like, yeah, I just kind of want this to happen and maybe it's not insane. So like, let's throw it out there.
I'm just here for the free food, honestly.
As an extra note, we're going to mention AOS 4th a lot in these guesses. I am going to talk about at least 5 major things that 4th does versus 10th as like a evolution of what 10th was figuring out. This does not mean that I want AOS 4th edition rules copied over wholesale. There is equally as many things in AOS 4th that I do not want, but we are not going to spend an hour talking about why command abilities should not be on war scrolls and stuff like that.
Bricky, have you ever eaten at a Coney Island?
No, I don't think I'm sure there's one down here, but like I've never been at a Coney Island, no. Isn't that the African warlord?
No.
That's Coney 2012, baby.
Aw, damn, my bad. I always get them mixed up.
Where were you going with this, Eric?
Yeah, I'm very curious
No,
what the segue is, man.
You were just like, hey, I'm here for the good food. And I was like, yeah, Michigan's got like Coney's.
Oh, Eric's just hungry. Okay. I thought that was part of Eric's like segue. I'm like, damn, how are you pulling this back? This is interesting. Let's see.
I just kind of glossed over and was like, food, Coney. I want a Coney dog right now. Yep.
I don't think I've ever had a Coney dog, no.
And as a final warning, we are going to be discussing a lot of changes to Warhammer 40k. The Warhammer 40k community is not a monolithic hive mind. Just because we wish for a change or think it's likely doesn't mean everybody does. That's okay. You can spitball your own ideas in the comments and discuss them with each other. But if you get toxic with each other in the comments, I will Cadia your ass so hard while laughing to myself.
Hey man, that's offensive.
Only to Cadians.
Yeah, I was on Cadia, you son of a bitch.
Luckily, you have New Cadia.
All right, with all the warnings out of the way, what the hell are we going to discuss today?
11th edition.
Specifically, to bullet point what you're going to hear, we're going to talk about when 11th edition is going to hit. Will it have indexes or will codexes from 10th work in it? The major rule changes that we're going to shot call will exist, and like literally 2 out of 12 will actually happen. That stratagems suck, we'll get there. Army rules and subfaction structures for 11th versus 10th. Subfaction and detachments in general. The psychic phase and prayers. And the combat patrol replacement format, which I'm going to just shot call right now, will not get called combat patrol. And that is what we're covering on this episode. If you all like this episode and actually really like listening to us argue back and forth game design stuff, I would love to do a sequel on this where we go army by army and try to figure out what we think 11th edition will change or not with them. So feel free to tell us if you want us to do that episode.
Can I say something, Brad? You're bringing me back to like an older version of me, and it's very quaint. You're bringing me back to like year 2, year 3 content that I did where I like really cared about what the audience said. Fuck them, you know? Let them bicker in the comments. Let them go get toxic. Turn them nuclear. And then when it gets too far, you just click hide user from channel, and then your life is fixed.
I mean, I do that anyway. For people who like only watch the like really casual friendly episodes, like grading every faction and stuff, this is where Eric and I live, is in game design talks and like heavy design talk. This is where we can go in the weeds for a 6-hour episode and make you bear through it.
Yeah, make me bear through it. Because they're like, bring Bricky on for this episode.
No. I said, I know you don't have game design chops, but would you like to join because I know you love talking about 40K? And you said, bitch, I'm the best game designer there is.
I did say exactly those words. No cap, true and bussin'.
I got the logs.
Yeah, he has the actual logs. Berilio, bring up the logs.
All right, so I think the easy first one is like, when is 11th going to actually happen? And I mean, yeah, we're talking about it basically a year from when it's expected to hit.
Yeah, so this one was actually really fun because I ended up doing research on previous editions' launches, partly for a different topic, but partly because I wanted the dates for them. And it's shocking how very formulaic it is. Are you ready? 6th edition, all the way back in 2012. June 23rd, 2012, 6th edition launches. And then 7th edition launches May 24th, 2014, only 2 years after 6th, because from what I gather at the time, everyone really hated 6th. And then we enter a very familiar pattern. 8th edition launches almost exactly 3 years to the day afterwards, June 17th, 2017. 9th edition launching an extra month after all the other editions in this list do, because the state of the world in 2020. But July 25th, 2020, they finally launched the edition after quote unquote a few weeks delay due to COVID and shipping. 10th edition happened June 24th, 2023, as most of you are aware. And then 11th edition, by this pattern, should be 2026 June blank. So we are talking about this almost a year to the day from when we expect it to show up.
Yeah, I think it's pretty expected that like it's going to follow the formula, even though it still means that there's going to be a bunch of codexes that are released that you're going to be able to play with for like a couple months.
Don't worry, we're going to talk about that because I'm still sour about it in 9th and it's not getting better in 10th. Drukhari when?
Yeah, basically.
So on that subject, let's talk about indexes versus getting to continue to play your codex that you paid an absurd amount of money for when the rules are outdated days after buying it or sometimes before.
The real question there is like, if 11th edition is going to do massive changes to the core rules and all of that, they don't have a codex extension when that happens. That's too much effort, work, and all that bullshit. So like, if it isn't going to be a major overhaul, do they keep a codex and just extend it, or do they still do index release kind of thing?
I mean, it's just kind of weird because based on the data, it absolutely does appear like it's time for the new editions. But as far as codex release schedules that swap to new editions, it could not have been a worse time. Seeing the 9th to the 10th thing was a big reset, right? But 9th at least had a substantial amount of time and effort where you could do your other things in the meantime. Like, yeah, Guard didn't get their codex until the way end, but you still had like 6 sub-factions of Guard. You didn't have real space raid for actually 3 years.
Yeah.
And obviously that's a bit of hyperbole, but even so.
But it feels that way at the very least.
Well, it does. I mean, and it's not wrong. I mean, Votann have 2. At this situation and at this point, they are really about to launch every final codex. And based on what we're looking at, it's going to be 3 to 6 months before the possibility of them being invalidated, which leads me to believe they won't won't be invalidated, and they're going to stick in 11th, albeit most likely changed up. But can you imagine the concept of buying a codex in the year 2025 of our Lord? It will be there for at most a year, and it's still a big paperweight of paper.
I mean, that's why, like, Grey Knights, I have no expectations for this codex. I'm waiting for 11th.
And that's fair. For any audience member who doesn't have a codex for their army yet, I am not going to be the person telling you to rush out and buy a codex that may or may not be dead come 11th. And I honestly, due to certain changes that I would be a proponent of, I want them to not be playable in 11th, because having a codex go to the next edition is not free from a rule standpoint. It adds baggage. You have certain things that you now must support even if you wanted to change them at the edition changeover. And that doesn't mean like huge things. It means even little things like now you're stuck with the fact that those detachments and those stratagems exist.
You also have like, oh, these are the weapons and the base profiles and that kind of stuff. It goes a lot deeper and is more annoying to update than I think people expect it would be. And that's even if like expecting that 11th isn't this massive departure from 10th, which I don't think it is going to be this like complete overhaul like 9th to 10th. I think it's going to be the 10th, but with additions and then some cleanups and like maybe we'll get some big stuff, but like not completely gutting what we have.
Yeah, let's put on our evil businessman hats for a moment. 11th edition is not going to veer too far from 10th because for anyone who has checked annual reports from GW, 10th edition was wildly successful financially. They made buku bucks, much more growth than could be expected. It has been a very good couple years, and this is after 9th edition was a very good couple years for them already. So there is no reason to believe that 10th edition simplified, not simple, is going anywhere. So we used that to color our rules changes. Basically, if I want something more complex, I have to find where you're streamlining and simplifying something else. And I just generally think we're not getting away from the simplified rule structure of 10th. However, there are things that we can talk about through this that would alleviate some of the problems that more serious players have had with 10th edition's rule set. But anyway, for my takes on the Codex versus Index, I'm a proponent of indexes coming out for 11th because you already knew you were buying a scam book when you bought your Codex. If you haven't learned that in 10 editions, I can't help you. We have mentioned it possibly 5 times a year on this show.
It's so crushing too, because one of the common things that we always discuss, like if you're gonna do codexes, make them giant lore and glorified combo art books, make them fancy pantsy, make them look really good. And they did that, sort of. They did that on the just the outside though. They did that with all of the like the new Chaos Space Marine subfaction codexes look absolutely gorgeous. The extra things that they have are awesome, and it's still a completely anemic codex with barely any lore, barely any new artwork, and completely halfway filled with rules that may not matter in a month.
I'm so glad you brought this up. Okay, so we didn't rehearse this, but Bricky, you brought up something without knowing it. We almost did a rant episode on this because I opened up my World Eaters and Thousand Suns codices. The codexes in 10th are somehow worse than the ones in 9th at being what we wanted, where we were like, just make them amazing art lore books, make us want to spend $200 on the gold trim version where you go, no true fan could skip out on this stupid thing. You can collect all the pieces and assemble Megatron. They got that part right.
They did on the outside.
Yeah, it's all superficial.
When you open it, all of the pages that used to have the alternate paint schemes, used to have all those instructions, used to talk about different sub-war bands, anything that talked about lore, it's so fucking minimal compared to what it was before.
I think 9th codexes were actually pretty cool. I'm very fond of my Guard one. There's a lot of new artwork, lots of cool new like character stuff, various stories. It's pretty darn good. There's a lot in there. I mean, it's maybe not as perfect as it could be, but there's a decent amount. In 10th, it's like nothing. There's like nothing in there. I have my Emperor's Children one, not the special edition, but the one I got from like the early box type set.
Yeah.
And I was opening it up and it sucks because the stuff that they do have in there is kind of neat. Like, you know how every so often when you open a codex, they have like little excerpts on like top right corner, like little bookmarks that have either a small character moment or I think in the Guard book, it was like the patterns of las guns or something of that nature. In the Emperor's Children one, they're all drugs. they're all like some like skin schism, and it's always the same thing. It's like distilled from the suffering of 500 people melted down into a goo. This is snorted into the eyeballs of Emperor's Children Marines to let them see colors and talk to God. And if you can survive it, yay! It just goes on that line, and that's super funny and really cool. And then it's like 26 pages, and then the rest of it is Combat Patrol, detachments, and data sheets that don't matter.
And that's exactly the opposite of what we wanted when we were talking about how we would change the 9th edition codices. Was we wanted more of that, and then just keep the rules on the website and let us download them, and then you can update them, and we don't have to care.
Rules online, freely available. Great. That means you can actually focus on the cool part of that book, the little lore snippets, the awesome art, you know, the different paint schemes and all that kind of stuff. Like, really go hard into that, and that would be awesome.
I hate to be that guy, but I'm gonna have to be that guy just a little bit, because there's a very dedicated group of people, old head Warhammer players, that absolutely love their physical books, and they want to go up and bring a physical book to a thing.
That's fair.
And you know what? For a lot of years, I was down for that, but you know what? I'm gonna put my foot down, and I say that opinion is no longer valid. We have advanced too far as a society. Every single thing ever involves some kind of QR code for a driver or for a download or for an app. And if we're doing digital rules that are being refreshed and updated at a decent rate, that's in the codex, and make the whole thing artwork, lore, and additional stuff, and get that with a codex and a code that gives you a lot of free time on the app because you bought the codex. That is fine. If you want to bring the physical stuff and you want to be old school, then use an old school device called a printer.
I think that's really where I'm at on that one as well. Of like, I agree, there are absolutely benefits from like physically holding the rules in like paper form and being able to like point at it and be like, that thing, without having to show, like, turn your phone around. But like, yeah, you can just either use your own printer, it'll do the job just as well.
Yeah.
And then everybody else can focus on like, yeah, we've got this cool art book, then that's the point of it.
I'll even go in the boomer defense further than you two on this one. I'm okay with still putting in a version of the rules in a codex, as long as it comes with a caveat of like, this is not the up-to-date rules. This was just the rules at one point in development for this edition, a snapshot in time. You could play an unbalanced game with this, but the real rules are found here on this website. You can do that. You can even sell those stupid data cards that have typos all over the place and are a terrible idea to buy. As long as they're voluntary and it's for the people who like to physically have the card there and they have to update it and scribble with a pen on it and everything, those are whatever to add on. Make your money. I get it as a company. You want to make sure that you're still making money off this stuff. And I don't mind you selling that. I won't advise buying it, but it will exist and many people will buy it. I have bought data cards for my own armies knowing how fucking stupid it was to do.
Now, I will say, in an anti-boomer defense for a quick moment, if we're doing the monetization part of the Games Workshop stuff, doing that is increasing the size of your book by like another 30 pages at minimum. And that's going to cost a hell of a lot more to make your codex. So I would much rather get my 100-page codex of lore and everything, and maybe at the end of it, you can have like things like detachments or just the general army rules or whatever you want.
Yeah, like cut out like units and stuff.
Or at least like make less of it. What is it? Like at most 2 data sheets per page. Like maybe you can consolidate that a little bit. Either way, I'd much rather have the 80 pages of lore and artwork and then a code that gives you some time free on the Warhammer app because you bought the codex and you get the rules, as opposed to what we have now. If they had that in the new Emperor's Children codex, I would have bought it in a heartbeat, because the artwork on the outside is sick. The coins are sick. The little like dais that you can get, the dais that you can get with the 4 things, like, it's cool. This is the way I want it to go.
Have you seen the Reddit posts of people like doing the last snap? And it's so fucking satisfying.
No, I have not actually.
Oh, people were posting that like the Warhammer 40k sub, and I ended up watching like 3 of these little videos of people posting like putting the 4th one in place, and it just does that like mag lock in place and it makes the perfect circle. Oh, very satisfying to see.
That's awesome.
That's the stupid monkey brain shit that gets me to spend $400 I shouldn't fucking spend.
No, but if I'm gonna do it, at least make the book good. Damn it.
It's like they're partly there. They've got like a lot of the superficial stuff that's really like eye-catching and like judge a book by its cover, but then like the book isn't quite there yet. So like maybe 11th they'll have more art and stuff like that.
So all of this gets into, I am pro doing indexes, and here is my sales pitch for it. For people who don't know AOS AOS 4th, we're going to explain a lot of things from it structure-wise and how it learned from 10th when it launched and has updated since then, because it did a lot of note copying and a lot of fixing things after we bitched about them in 10th. Indexes in 4th edition AOS came out with 4, their equivalent of detachments, their battle formations, but whatever. Came out with 4 of them instead of the 1 we got during 10th edition. That helps add a little bit of variety. And then we have, how do you build upon everybody's index? Like, if we're not doing codexes have rules, how do you do it? How do you actually make people care after their index comes out and they don't like it? We already have the answer. It was Grotmus. It was Scourge of Gyran over in AOS land. It's the quarterly data slate update that now includes the new detachments. It's just doing events like that to add detachments, to go, hey, everybody, it's 40k update time. Everyone gets new toys. Go buy your new Mawlock and Trigon over here. Holy shit, destroyers look so cracked in this detachment over here, Necrons. It's an easy win for you, Games Workshop, making this, because now you get to do Grotmus, which I'm sure sold a bunch of stuff for soup armies. And in general, it makes the game feel alive and like you're getting fresh new stuff. That's not just balance updates. So it works for us as players.
Yeah, I think I expect that same kind of thing of like, we'll get indexes, and like, even if they wanted to keep the old 10th edition codexes, there's enough effort that they would have to do to fix them that at that point you just release it as an index, and then you have like free detachments to like release at Grotmus or whatever. And then like, I don't think 4 is going to be realistic. Like 2 is what I kind of expected, and then we get 1 for everybody at Grotmus, and then you get 1 more throughout the year for every faction.
I'm very much the opposite. I think 4 is a bare minimum to keep people from rioting if you take codexes away after what we just lived through with Index Land for years.
I am in full agreement. I think 4 is a minimum. I honestly think 4 is not even a minimum. I think 5 is a minimum, personally.
I think you guys are crazy. There are codexes with 4.
Yeah, and they suck, and I hate them.
Sure, but like, I think you guys are crazy to expect the 11th release indexes to be 4 detachments and then get Grotmus and more throughout the year. Like, no.
You can win-win by making it be 4+ and literally give Space Marines 8 because jerk them off. You can do that and get a free win with the players while doing very little extra work by just basing them off 10th edition's detachments, but with 11th edition structure. You just have the exact same theme, the exact same rules idea, even some of the fan favorites of like favorite enhancements people have, though I do have changes coming to those. But you do all that and then just call it like your 10th edition codex that you love so much, that you spent so much money on, is getting free updates to work in 11th, available online. And that's the actual index.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that is extremely optimistic.
I don't know. I think they just take the old ones and they just put them back in. Honestly, I think the old detachments just stay. I get they get changed.
Yeah, they'll get changed, but I think they are what you make be the index in air quotes for the new edition. Do all your data sheet changeovers you want, do all your errata you want, do all your changes to structure you want, and then just plop down these as your index detachments until you do updates thereon. And it's not like they run out of room. Like, we literally did this on that Adric episode that we joined for, where in Tau, in a single day, I came up with 7 extra detachments they don't have yet, and they've made 1.5 of those since then. So like, you could do this for all the way through 11th, releasing every army a new detachment in addition to all the ones in their codex from this edition every 6 months, and still end up at the end of the edition with a normal roster of detachments. And they have been doing a very good job, to give GW credit here, of making better detachments over time. I'm a huge fan of detachments that are a little spicy, like the new Tyrannid one they just did. They are showing that they definitely are getting their legs under them in detachment design.
I don't think there's enough proper development time that GW has with their current employee roster to do that full change while still doing 10th edition releases of Grotmus or whatever, and expecting to have more of that throughout after 11th is released for the next year with Grotmus. Like, it isn't free to make the update from a 10th edition codex to whatever's happening 11th unless 11th has basically no changes. Like, there is an amount of development time that needs to be done for every single one that gets changes, and I just don't think that that's realistic.
I do think 11th does have very few changes realistically. We're going to talk about some wild ones that won't happen, but we're going to assume it's going to be minimal. But I also think you're not thinking of the other angle of, if we're getting a detachment, it's because it's an 11th one backported. And that's why you end up with busted shit shit or terrible shit that's thematic as fuck, because they made it for 11th and just went, how do you 10thify this, slapped it together and threw it out there as the every 3 month update.
I think that for the most part, the 4 detachments is perfectly realistic because I think that's already what's happening. I genuinely think that we're just going to get some of the ones we currently have and we're just going to get them readjusted and then throw them back in.
Fully agree. But anyway, let's start Fight Club. For a look behind the scenes, there was some boiling blood this morning talking about major rule changes.
Do you call it boiling blood?
Oh yeah. Bricky was tearing his hair out, screaming, all caps, in my DMs, for real, for real.
Currently, we got that Brad is looking like that soy jack that's like shitting, crying himself, but he has like the mask on over top of that looks smug.
That is about perfect representation, yeah.
Exactly the face.
See what I mean? All right, let's talk about major rule changes that we think are possible, we think aren't possible, but we're going to wish them into existence anyway. All of that for 11th.
Sorry, Brad. I've depicted you as the soy jack and me as the Chad.
So you're going to deport me with ice?
Why would I deport you with ice? I import ice just to make my drinks cold.
All right, so the first rule... All right, so the first rule update.
I don't think we're going in any like particular order here. Like these are ideas.
These are string of consciousness as I wrote them.
Let's start with an easy one then. Okay,
Yeah.
let's start with an easy one that's clear and obvious. Psychic phase.
Why would you start with that? We have a whole section dedicated to it.
Because I wanted to go use the bathroom while you ramble.
Okay, so Psychic definitely comes back in 11th. They've
Yeah.
already given us Pseudo-Psychic in the Thousand Suns Codex. We expect to get something similar for Grey Knights.
Wait, hold on, Brad. I thought pseudo-psychic was the thing that Gwyneth Paltrow does.
I don't know celebrities. I'm not from California.
Pseudoscience. That's actually that's what the Necrons are going to be doing. They're going to be doing pseudoscience.
We'll get into that when we do the Psychic stuff. We have a whole section for Psychic that we'll get into in prayers as a little teaser, but I fully expect it will come back.
Given Thousand Suns, I think we can accept that they understand that psychic matters.
That said, what will not come back is the Psychic phase.
Probably not. I feel like it might.
Psychic comes back, Psychic phase doesn't, because AOS solved the problem, and I think everyone just enjoys that version, and we just wanted it in 40k the whole time.
Is AOS's version like at the start of the shooting phase type thing?
It's basically what 10th's pseudo-psychic abilities were, but more solidified into the game, where it's like, here are psychic abilities that are command phase. Here are ones that are shooting phase. Here are ones that are melee phase. They weave into the turn as abilities that you cast, rather than just, all right, time for the phase you don't get to play during. They do like 90% as command phase, by the way, but it is a malleable system.
I just wonder if they just bring it back and call it as like hey, we brought back the greatness. I don't really care either way. It's gonna be functionally the same if most of Psychic is in Psychic phase or it's in command phase.
Yeah, it's most likely you sales pitch it, because obviously like part of this is how do I sales pitch it to the noob and to the angry gamer, capital G gamer. The sales pitch is Psychic is back, but the Psychic phase you hate so much isn't. You pull shit like that. All the cool spells, none of the boring Psychic phase.
It doesn't really matter on that of like if you get a phase or it's command. But yeah, we'll get further into like some specifics on that because you brought up prayer and like
Yes.
we both have that as like this is our fix too, but I don't get psychic. So other major rule changes.
Here's one that's not a change that I'm just going to shot call because people are going to ask. War gear will not get point costs with very few exceptions possible. Like there will be a single one you can point to and go, see Brad, I got a point cost.
I agree. I don't think the general rule is going to change, but I do think that there are going to be specific units that have war gears with points. It just kind of has to. We've seen the delta between some of the profiles and you're like, this is just wrong. From a balance aspect, this is the stupidest fucking thing ever. But at the same time, the idea of being able to build your models with the cool thing and not have this like, oh, but I fucked up. I'm just new to the army. I'm new to this hobby. Wow, I hate this. That like feeling is solid with free war gear. Like you don't have to worry about it. I think that core stays.
I do think that the exception cases will be few and far between because I have a feeling something they got more comfortable with over the edition, look at the brand new Tyranid models, is making two data sheets. One doesn't have the options, one has all the options. And you just go, So you can either play min loadout trash dudes or you can play Giga Chad real squad.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I do think that the data sheets on like that war gear section are gonna include other stuff. I don't know how far they'd actually go, but I think it would be cool if they included like unit specific enhancements.
Yeah, we can get into the enhancement system changes when we get down there, but yeah, I have ideas for that too. I don't think either of us are fans of 10th edition's handling of enhancements.
No.
Bricky, do you have thoughts on war gear?
Honestly, I'm kind of fine with it not coming back in terms of points. It's easier from a modeling perspective. It's easier from a prepping perspective. It lets you play with your cool stuff, because if you do cost war gear, then you are naturally inclined to take no war gear because you're using the unit for the unit and not the unit for the guns. And therefore, like always, you are either going to do one or two things. Either jam pack the unit full of war gear or give them no war gear. And the only time you'll ever do something in between is if you have 5 to 10 points left over, which is all that it is. I mean, if you want to have like a war gear system, then you should have some kind of like mini enhancements, which are point-based things that you can just slap on people, like a cool, powerful power sword for 5 points for a battle sister like squad sergeant.
And that's kind of where I was going. Yeah.
Yes. That's one of the ideas that I have had for an enhancement thing, but I think Eric's going to have more detail on because I saw what he wrote. But as some proof for those non-believers who are like, it's definitely changing back. Last week, we got the data slate that is like the final year data slate start. That is when Arcs of Omen happened in 9th edition. This is the equivalent, and that's when we got all of those cool things that happened in Arcs of Omen that were basically secret beta tests to see how we would respond to them when they happened at a larger scale during 10th edition. We did not see them backpedal that whatsoever. Whereas Arcs of Omen was the one that initiated it in the first place. I think they just came back, got their responses, and went, nope, 90% of people don't want this.
Yeah, I mean, war gear options are fine for those specific niche cases. And the only other reason why I would think that it would be important is because you are unable to balance weapons without a certain way to mess around with that. But that's kind of the fault of the weapon balancing and not of the points.
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, like there are legacy kits that exist that let you take certain loadouts. And so like you have to keep those problem units in mind when you say all war gear is free, you can take a heavy bolter or a las cannon, don't worry, bye, we're good, it's all the same, right? And then it's like, well, hold on a minute, let's actually look at this again.
They are few and far between though.
Yes.
It is some old Marine kits and that's it.
Also, I must say, if they're going to do war gear like that, I mean, this kind of goes into the type of thing that we're talking about a little bit later. I really, really dislike how they've done the thing where they've done Tau like battle suits, and it's the Sunforge suits and the Star Scythe suits and all that kind of stuff. I don't know why it's difficult as a concept to just make them one. Like I look at Retributor squads, right? Sister heavy weapon squads. And naturally it's a little bit confusing between, okay, quad heavy bolter, quad multi-melta, and quad heavy flamer. And that will be like the only time where I'd be somewhat okay with a sort of cost to come back, where instead, because I really don't want them to do Retributors with heavy flamers, Blight drone with heavy blight launcher, that kind of stuff.
They don't need it for everything, but for heavy weapon squad, it is definitely the pick.
Well, I don't even think you got to make it the pick. It can still be the Retributor squad, but you can just say like, okay, pick your loadout, 4 weapons of this, this, or this, and each one has its own rules associated with it and its own points. You don't got to be all fancy pantsy and be like, well, I'm going to take 2 heavy flamers and 1 heavy bolter.
Oh, yeah. No. You get specific loadouts.
Oh, I get what you're saying. An all or nothing.
Yes, because I really dislike the way they do it with guard loadouts. Like, why is there Acadian, Kriegsman, and Catachin heavy weapon team? There should be the heavy weapon team, and then there should be weapons that you combine with that, then you pick your rule for it, because then you also don't have the problem of being able to take 9 heavy weapon teams.
I do think guard is the worst non-old Marine case of this that exists.
It's the most obvious with a lot of those, but I think the idea of your war gear is like not like by individual models gun, it's by like this unit has the option of taking heavy bolters or it has the option of taking las cannons, and one of them costs more points. If you don't have enough las cannons and you want to for some reason take some heavy bolters instead, you just cost it at the las cannon cost and just eat the point negative on that, right? You just take the higher point one. That's the balance, job done.
If this contains any heavy bolters, it costs blank. If it contains any las cannons, it costs blank. And then you just, oh, I have las cannon cannon, I go to top value.
Yes, exactly. It also stops the rule of 3 from getting weird as well. And also, you know, just like, I don't know, it just feels that kind of method. Like if you're going to do, I don't know, Immortals, Necron Immortals, like I don't want War Gear cost to come back, but I am fine with just the concept of here's your Necron Immortals. If they've got Teslas, they cost this. If they have Gauss, they cost this. And that's fine for like a all or nothing thing. My Battle Sister squad should be able to just take whatever because that's how those kits are built. I pick one special, one heavy, I pick a sergeant weapon and a melee weapon, and then I'm done.
Yeah, I think that there will absolutely be some units that are going to be just like, nah, there's not like point adjustments. This is what you have.
I will say I like mixing and matching because I do like the idea, like you said, of Retributors. One thing with multiple points depending on which type of weapon you picked. Like it's a one data sheet at different points depending on which set of weapons. That's fine. If we also have the option open of Immortals with Tesla with ability A that's Tesla based and Immortals with Gauze with ability B that's Gauze based, because I think that sounds interesting on a Necron front, which is a different, like two solutions to the problem that I'm okay with both existing within the same edition on a case by case basis for what adds the most fun.
Yeah, like I don't think Necron Warriors need a difference between the Gauss Reaper and the Flayer. Because
exactly, no. Just leave those as two options. They've got decent argument for either depending on where we are balance-wise in the edition anyway.
If you can't balance it by the weapons alone, like a multi-melta will always be taken over a heavy bolter 90% of the time. If you can't do it from the weapons alone, you can do it from the abilities.
I think that's the real one.
And that's why I really love with the Russes. Like the Russes are the A+ here. Of all of the different main battle cannons are different kits. The side sponsons don't matter. Those are quote unquote free, take whatever's correct. And each of your main battle cannon changeouts gives you a different ability.
Yeah, if you're going to have additional sheets, it would be because of ability, not because of different weapon.
Yeah, the weapon usually signifies it, but...
Yeah, but like then with this, you could have different weapons with, you know, the fancier ones just cost extra points for that entire unit. And then that would kind of allow you to customize things a little bit more while also not losing out on the, oh, I built this wrong, fuck.
I do have a slight, like, maybe this is weird because I'm a guard person, but I also am kind of like, I don't know if we need the ability to be able to take like 15 Lehman Russes. 3 is not enough, but like, you know, the idea that you can rule of 3 every single variant of Rust does feel like it's a bit much.
I don't think it negatively affects the game and it makes some people happy.
I think it does negatively affect the game.
Does it?
I think so. Like I have the same feeling with like the bloat drones, for example. The fact that there's like 3 with flesh mower, 3 with blight launcher means it gets kind of weird, especially if those units are strong. It also creates a little bit of a modeling problem. This is a weird one, and maybe this is like a strange take. I dislike when Games Workshop gives people a reason to over purchase kits, which clearly should not be over purchased. Like if you have 6 blight drones, I think that's a dumb idea because there's a damn good chance they're gonna go back down to 3.
But before the episode, you told me you liked Leader, and Leader is exactly that. It's part of why I don't like Leader.
That is not at all what that is.
Leader gives you a reason to buy 3 fucking captains for no reason.
No, Captain with Thunderhammer and Captain with Power Fist and Captain with Power Sword are not different data sheets. There's Captain and Captain with Jump Pack. Now, don't get me wrong, we've got too many captains, but it's not like you've got Judiciar with thing, Judiciar with other thing, etc.
No, but it's you would never take 2 captains in 9th edition. You couldn't. Whereas in 10th edition, you can now take 3, so there's an excuse to buy more kits.
Yes, but there's not a reason to buy 6.
Sure, but it's still, you tripled the amount people were going to buy, which worked for almost all characters.
That's not a leader problem.
How many 9th edition lists would you ever want more than one of any of your characters, with the exception of like Thousand Sons?
That's a captain problem. That's not a leader problem. That's a captain problem.
But Leader did it for all HQ units.
No. How often do you currently, in this edition, take more than like 2 of a singular type of leader? Very rarely, and only in skew lists if like Slang's OP is crap. You don't even take 2 captains normally because only one can get the free strat.
I agree with you, but how many times is it correct to take 15 Lehman Russes?
It's not, but it is for 6.
Sure, but if you told guard players they couldn't play 6 Lehman Russes, they'd scream.
That is true.
Which is why I don't think this problem that requires fixing in the first place.
I hate the fact that it can happen because it tempts people to do so when it clearly will not stay. That's what bugs me.
Okay, that argument I get, but if 11th keeps it, then it kind of tells you it's staying. It's existed for the last 6 years at this point. Plus, didn't 9th have the ability to run more than 3 anyway? Because couldn't they squad to 9?
You could do 9 Lehman Russes, correct?
Yeah, so like either way, a reasonable number.
It's just a thing, because like Sentinels went down to 2 and it really sucked. Anyway, what were you saying, Eric?
So it's one of those interesting things that I was going to bring up during like army building, and the idea of current, mustering your army is great. Like it's pretty free form, it's flexible, like do whatever you want, rule of 3, great. We've got battle line I fucking love. And the fact that you can add battle line to things from the detachments, it's great.
Which is underutilized.
Yeah, but I do think that there is potential for them to add a keyword that limits from like you can't have more than this many of this keyword. And I was like a specialist or something like that. I think that kind of solution could fix but we have too many of these sheets that are the same but with slight variation.
Sure, I get what you're saying with that.
I don't think it's particularly necessary, but it's a solution that could exist.
Yeah, and I think that's a solution that gets shot down when it's adding friction to list building for very little benefit. And that's going to be something that gets brought up a lot, is they are looking to lower friction for little Timmy to get to a game. Like that's why we went from Arcs of Omen, which I do slightly prefer Arcs of Omen over 10th edition from army construction standpoint. However, it's not enough of a negative to go to 10th edition's freeform YOLO from Arcs of Omen to make up for how much easier it is to not screw up for a new person, which is going to be like literally 90% of people who have ever played Warhammer play it once a year.
No, I'm with you. I don't think it's going to happen, but I don't think it would be that much of an extra friction because like it would be on a more special case. It would not be, it'd be a keyword that you specifically target for potential problems. And then normal list building would happen unless you were really trying to skew things, when it would come up and be like, hey, stop doing that.
I want to idiot proof the game.
Sure.
Because I don't want new player, which I wouldn't call idiot.
They are.
But coming in and being like, damn, I love these bloat drones. I can take 6. Yeah. And they buy 6. And then in addition / codex later, it will revert back to the old version of 3 bloat drones. And then they're like, what the hell? I wasted like $230 on bloat drones. And for like people who played this game for a while, that's kind of on them. They should know better by now, looking at you custodian Forgeworld players. But well, also at the same time, like new players don't know that. They don't know the history. They don't get it. And for that reason, I do want to like kind of proof that a little bit.
And 10th edition was very much targeted towards new players. And I think 11th is going to continue that. So yeah, totally makes sense.
All right. We have spent quite a while and we're on point 1. So point 2, to speed things up, I'm going to shot call aircraft get a major rework. No, GW, I am not being paid right now to solve that for you, and you cannot pay me enough to solve this for you. Good luck.
So I've thought of a couple problems and potential solutions, but like they obviously need reworks. They did not do well in 9th and 10th for balance and different aspects.
Half were useless, half were broken.
Yeah, and there's no like, oh, this is the way to fix it. Fucking obviously do this. There's a bunch of potential solutions and none of them are like, this is the way to do it, obviously. I do think aircraft need to be split up further. There's just currently aircraft is too broad. There are some that are like, 100 points and there are others that are like 300 points and they're both getting balanced around aircraft rules and it's fucking dumb.
So you're saying different categories of aircraft with different rule sets.
Yeah, and I think it realistically only needs 2, 3 maybe, but like realistically you should be able to try 2 and get away with it. Something that's like, I don't know what the hell you call it, like some type of light fighter versus heavy fighter or bomber or something like that. Like figure out words. But it's one of those like split aircraft up so that you don't make the smaller, cheaper airplanes unplayable because they're being balanced around big fuck off gunships that when they come in you have to balance around all those huge guns. The light fighters would get like more maneuverability so they can spin and rotate before and after move and like shorter minimum distance, like all kinds of stuff like that. And then like the heavy fighter, you would be able to make their weapons just better, their abilities better.
I have a band-aid fix for 11th
Yeah.
that I think would work well. However, it would not necessarily be the perfect fix, but but I think it would be a fine in between. I think every single aircraft should act as if it's indirect fire. Every single aircraft can only hit on 4s. The opponent will always get the benefit of cover. I mean, maybe you can not give them the -1 to hit type thing, but that depends. Like if you're hitting on 3s, it's -1 hit because of indirect, but it's 4s anyway, et cetera, et cetera. But if the aircraft is kind of coming in a sense, you're thinking of it a little sometimes like the idea of an indirect thing where the aircraft comes in, goes brrr, and then you hear the lovely A-10 sound. And, you can kind of see it coming. They can duck for cover, etc. So it's a lot more chip damage based. And then in return, you either do one of two things, or both, honestly. You A, change a lot of their rules to be support based, kind of like how a lot of indirect fire has been doing lately. Like there's almost no indirect fire that has damage as its rule. Very few. At least I could tell that from guard. Like almost every single guard artillery is a form of debilitation. Like basilisks make you move slower, manticores reduce your OC, etc. And then I would probably just say maybe make the aircraft a little bit more tanky in response, just because like give them -1 to hit or something, because if you're going to drastically reduce their firepower, they should be able to be a little bit, a little stronger because they're really high up there. I don't want 7th edition.
That's what they had in 9th, right?
Yeah, they all had like a -1 to hit or something. And I think just in general, some kind of like strafing run type thing and giving them indirect rules would be my band-aid fix.
It's a Rev 1 fix. It's where we start and then we talk about it after testing, right?
Yeah, because I look at the Valkyrie, which already has like some of the worst rules ever for no apparent reason, but it's a transport, right? And it has some like somewhat decent guns. Like it's not like the worst thing in the world, but it's guard, it hits on 4s, it's pretty mediocre. But the main thing about the Valkyrie that really throws me is that one, its rule is completely useless. It makes no sense. I have no idea why it is there. But also, more particularly, like it's just like it's a guard vehicle. It's kind of a brick that flies. It's T10, 2-up save, 14 wounds. It has a couple of regular ass guns that aren't particularly great, but it's also 190 points, which is insane. And if you're gonna make like a Valkyrie transport, it should have some kind of thing. Maybe what's that rule where if you shoot at something, the things that hop out get like reroll wounds against it or something? Fire support, whatever they call it.
Yeah.
That one might be a little too strong, but something of that ilk. And then you bring it down to like 150. And then it's a support piece. And that's about it.
I feel like the movement and the fact that it comes in turn 2, doesn't move, and whatever it's pointed at is where it goes, because you can't rotate before you move. You do that afterwards. That's the
We can
real...
throw out the 10th edition movement rules for aircraft. That's okay.
That fundamentally needs to be changed, at the very least.
That said, Eric has a very important thing on his part of this notes here. Fix fly to go back to ignoring vertical distance. It's so fucking stupid that my greater demons, who are 40 feet tall with 100-foot long wings, cannot just hop over this goddamn building.
I do agree.
It's just, we were trying to make things simpler. Fucking why did you do this to fly?
Especially because, like, it doesn't even affect half the armies because all of their stuff with fly is infantry already, so they just walk through the ruins, and ruins is the only terrain in 10th edition.
It's just a hoop that you have to jump that's pointless. It doesn't do anything. I have a similar thing with how pivot rules are currently, but it's not anywhere near as bad.
Oh, I actually like pivot. Not the aircraft pivot, but like real pivot. Real pivot I actually kind of like.
I don't know. It's fine. I feel like it could be better, but I also don't really care. They're not going to change it. It's good enough.
It's better than the start of the edition / the shit we had to do in 9th. I'll take pivot.
But Battleshock, I guess the next one that you were going to bring up.
All right, rant time, baby. Quick, before I do my rant, do you have any reason you want to save leadership, Bricky?
Oh, like Battleshock and stuff?
Yeah, before I hit the delete key on all leaderships and fix this fucking game.
So, like, yes and no. So here's the thing, right? I'm in this weird mixture where on one hand, I think Battleshock, or maybe not Battleshock, but the concept of leadership is a valuable asset depending on the army.
Okay, I don't disagree with you. Listen to my sales pitch. Ready?
Oh, so you don't want to hear what I want to say?
Hold on. I have something. I want to see if you're like, I'm sold, or if you're going to say no.
Okay.
Fuck leadership, remove the stat, we're gone. It sucked in 8th edition, it sucked in 9th edition for different reasons. 10th edition, they really tried one last time to make it so that people would like it. Nobody fucking likes it. 4th edition actually did the right thing and had the balls to just finally remove it after AOS bitching about this the last 3 editions. So you throw that out. And then you use new ability to make them shake in their boots so they can't swing their sword as well. Or you force them to move 3 inches off the objective because you're so scary with a stratagem. You can show fear without having everyone deal with leadership checks. This gets rid of so many problems. It lets you have better rules for armies that are fear-based, that is not based around a stupid end-of-turn check that may or may not destroy a model or change an OC or whatever. There are other solutions. It's not something that was like missed after 4th took it away. All of the armies that were fear-based just changed how they showed fear. It's fucking trash as it is. Half the game lore-wise has an excuse to ignore it, which makes it a bully mechanic for the half that can't ignore it. And then you end up with this borderline useless against one half, really annoying versus the other half. No one's fucking happy. Look, the world of Warhammer 40k now truly knows no fear. There's your 11th edition tagline. Use it for free. Just nuke this. Let Chaos factions get real rules.
I half agree with you. I think leadership as a stat should stay because people want varying types of strength as that leadership. Custodians should not be affected by fear the same way guardsmen are. Caveat / adjustment, Battleshock should die.
I think we're on the same spot.
Sure. Okay, we're cooking.
I'm like, Battleshock, fucking remove it.
So leadership is a defensive stat like toughness?
Exactly. So if I'm playing my spooky, scary Night Lords and I run up to you, I want my Night Lord ability specifically to say at the start of the fight, whatever it is, doesn't matter what, but let's just for sake of our argument.
Sure. Go.
At the start of this fight phase, any enemy unit with an engagement range of this unit must take a leadership test. If that is failed, insert debuff / buff.
That is fine.
I'm not even sure if we need to do like leadership test. Just do like a check kind of thing.
I get what Eric's saying of like, don't make it like a current 10th edition leadership check 2d6. Like you can literally make it a stat like a toughness. Just a fucking, they've got to roll and they've got a 3 up.
Yeah, but that removes a source of rolling, which is fun.
No. Same roll. It's just, I'm saying like, don't tie exactly to current leadership check. We open the door to however we redesign.
Maybe. I guess for me, it's more so like they did that in 9th, where the Night Lord detachment basically was like -2 leadership. And if their leadership is 5 or lower, you get a bonus. And because of that, there were some armies that just physically could not get to 5.
Right.
Or whatever it was. And so for that reason, I'm like, okay, I don't want to check like that. Like I still want a roll to happen, but I 100% can see the idea where like, okay, Battleshock as a thing is the Desperate Escape thing, no OC and no strats. Take all of that, rip it apart, and then use it for various things. This thing scares you, and now you can't use strats. This other thing scares you and reduces your OC. Like they all have their own reason, which makes it more fluffy, because then if you're having the quake in your boots, like, why are you quaking in your boots? Is it the demon from beyond the dimension?
Or is it shell shock?
Yeah, or is it like, is the Night Tyrant looking at you? You know, they have like, and that will cause different reactions. So yeah.
And you can have some fun with that if you make it like a saving roll where you have an ability that instead of checking their save, make a save on your leadership instead.
Yeah, and I think that's a large reason why I want to keep leadership. And I think leadership is severely underused for being a stat. And we can get rid of Battleshock and all of that nonsense and actually use it as a proper stat throughout the game and use checks and like, reference it in any way.
Don't make it an end of turn tax to be like, oh shit, I lost 2 models. I forgot to roll the leadership last turn.
No, it's just a core characteristic of units now.
My first thing I think about is like, let's say Chaos Knights, right? If you do a thing where like Chaos Knights army rule is at either in your command phase or whatever it is, every enemy unit within 6 inches of a Chaos Knight must take a leadership check. If it is failed, these debuffs and all of those things that you get as knights that like get worse as the game goes on add to the debuffs. Like it starts off at -1 to hit, but then like by turn 5 it's -1 to hit, no strats, -1 OC, +1 to wound when you attack them, and like it just becomes this horribly debilitating heavy wave. And like that's kind of, I mean, obviously, salt to taste and everything, but that's kind of how I would see it, is that the leadership check is to therefore give yourself buffs or give them debuffs because, ooh, I'm so scared.
I'll take leadership staying in that way. I will also take leadership just disappearing. I'll be fine in both cases.
Either way, I think we can basically all agree that Battleshock needs to go away.
Yes, in current Battleshock, yes.
Yes, current iteration.
And the last two previous iterations. We don't want to go back.
I will say, in 9th, I did occasionally have people like fail morale or whatever, and they would roll so poorly. I think I killed like 6 Wraith Guard. It was so funny.
8th was the one where like guard could fail leadership and then all the guard disappear.
They all just died.
That was the other one. Then 9th was like, it doesn't fucking do anything because it's like one guy disappears if you fail.
But, soup. All right.
Oh, God. Soup, look, it's not a happy subject. Soup will continue to exist. It's pretty clear that they want soup to exist for sales reasons because it's a great way to get you to go from Army A to Army B that you've not been buying. But it's also clear that throughout 10th edition, we have seen they do not want soup to be a thing they have to balance. They want soup to exist purely for a for fun, terrible idea that you could do. So I expect that the Chaos Codices is how soup will be handled, or Grotmist detachments. You know, here is a single way where you can soup this army with that army. It is fluffy and terrible. You're good.
I think that Imperial Agents does show that they still want to have a faction that is like, this is the, oh, those Grotmist detachments didn't do what you wanted. This is the fallback of, it's probably going to be bad, but here's your soup faction for this part of 40k. And I think they probably expand that.
The idea of Imperial Agents is fine as a faction that could be expanded on. It's just, it gives me a headache to even think of, and GW doesn't make enough money as a company with their like 500 million a year or whatever to make me care about Imperial Agents enough to fix it.
Well, I think it's supposed to be underpowered so you don't have to worry about it. Like, that's the point of that existing from a like meta level.
Sure. But if you're trying to make it like a legitimate thing that's not a joke, I don't know how you do it without causing issues.
Yeah, I mean, honest to God, that's the issue with soup. People will only use them if they're OP or if they're like the Timmiest Timmy out there.
Which, again, they seem to be pro that of like, as long as the reason is you truly wanted to play 1,000 points of Drukhari with 1,000 points of Harlequins and you don't care that it's good, they're happy. It's only when you show up to a tournament with that and win that they're like, that's gonzo.
It's just, I don't know what to do with it because like they said they were going to make it a codex and they're like, okay, we made it a codex. There's a codex version now. There's codex points. And then they just are like, okay, stop whining. And they just gave up. No changes at all for agents is insane to me.
No, because to me, agents was a contractual obligation. Agents was, we have an index for 8th edition that we used all the way through the end of 9th for assassins and shit. In 10th edition, we had to give them an index again. And everyone keeps asking why their little art piece thing that got released in a special update of Kill Team or whatever isn't playable in 40k. It needs 40k rules. Here is all of that crap in a book. We make it all really bad and you stop fucking asking us because technically it's there. That's exactly what that was.
And I expect that to continue forward for many editions in the future and likely to have one in Chaos and whatever. Like that is just a thing that will exist because it's catch-all, fail case, nobody feels bad kind of thing. But
I do not have the words. I feel worse the fact that I just don't care to, because I would want to care. Like I want to care for someone else so someone else can be happy with it, but I just don't know.
Speaking of caring for someone else, it's time for us to move into all Forgeworld models will be found dead. Rationality. We have brains. We've been telling you this for years. You saw the beginning of 10th edition where they killed everybody but 10 of them. You saw them quietly kill 7 more over the edition. There's nobody left. They will not exist if you currently have one. Kiss it goodbye.
the only real question is how long Custodes get to keep theirs.
I think Custodes lose theirs before Knights.
Yeah, no, I think it's gone.
I think Custodes don't live through the literal beginning of 11th, and at some point in 11th, we will get a Custodes range expansion that will replace the Forgeworld stuff with new sculpts, which is also where we'll get our first female Custodes models that they failed to do when they made that. I expect that will happen for sure during 11th, and thus they won't have any need for the Forgeworld models on that side.
I don't think the Custodes Forgeworld are leaving immediately. They're going to want to keep that detachment, and you can't play that detachment without Forgeworld.
No, I think that detachment just gets rewritten to work with literally just the one fucking dreadnought and the gold tank, and that's it.
here's my hopium. They do make a plastic version of some of the custodian dreadnoughts in the tank.
Oh, that would be insane if they didn't do it at some point.
Yeah, but I expect it's later in the edition.
Sure, and then they axe everything else. Like the random fire pike Terminators in like Sagittarium, that's all gone.
But I expect you do have, if not plastic equivalents of them, a different plastic kit where you also introduce your female custodies at the same time. Because like, you know, that's something where they were like, maybe. They had a point, and we probably should have gone whole ass when we did this addition to the lore.
I do love going whole ass.
I do love 10-foot tall women who could kill me with their thighs.
All right, now you just made it weird.
There's nothing weird about that.
How is that weird? This man's not from the Midwest.
It's a perfectly normal kink, okay, Bricky? I will not be judged for it either.
You're lucky that Lady D was the best part of Resident Evil 8.
True.
And then it went downhill after that.
Never played that game, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, but Forgeworld, nah, it's definitely going away. I must admit, I'm pretty annoyed though. Like, they just released all of those plastic Contemptors and Deradeo dreadnoughts and stuff, and I was like, I have a Night Lord Contemptor dreadnought in my closet. I have a Kratos tank, and then they were like, yeah, this isn't coming to 40k, and I got really upset.
People were like, Brad, why do you hate the vehicle detachment in Thousand Suns so much? We haven't been allowed to play our vehicles in so long. I'm like, bitch, I've got 2 painted levy dreads that I can't use. I am not fucking happy about the current state of things in Thousand Suns for vehicles. I don't want to go buy a Land Raider. I want to play the cool dreadnoughts. All right. Oh, I've got the hottest cold take that will upset somebody out there.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I completely forgot.
Wait, so is this a hot take or is this a cold take?
This is the coldest take that for some reason somebody will scream about.
Okay.
Wounds will be renamed to health or some other equivalent because they did it with 4th edition AOS, and for 3 seconds this boomer crowd was angry that wounds stopped being wounds and started actually making sense, because now you have a stat for wounding and you have health, so you can talk about the game in an English sentence and have it make more sense.
And there's like expectation from every other game.
It was such a non-issue, and 3 seconds after it happened, everyone was like, oh yeah, this was a good change.
Yeah, just change it. I'm all for this.
It takes you literal minutes to change how you say things, and then you're suddenly like, holy shit, why didn't we do this the whole time?
So I was kind of shocked they didn't do something like this in 10th, because like the onboarding of a new player with wounds is needlessly complicated.
Everything to do with 10th's launch feels rushed, and 4th edition felt like 10th, but we had an extra year of people complaining about the small issues in 10th and seeing first feedback. Like, so many little things were just shy of reaching the actual go live date.
Well, because like think about whenever you like explain the rules to somebody, they'll always be like, oh, so that's like the health of it. That's that's the health of the model.
Oh, that's
right?
his
like,
HP.
That's what it is to a new player, and then they have to take that health or HP and translate it into wounds when they're playing 40k.
Yeah, but we still wound models. We have to make wound rolls.
Yeah, cold take, easy fix.
Cold take. I will still get rage in the comments. Here's a not so hot take. Crusade won't get fixed, but should be. My guess is everything to do with 11th is going to be based around whatever replaces Combat Patrol, which we'll get to in a segment later. But that will be like 100% of all hands on deck. Crusade will rot another edition of being a wasted gold mine. And I really think if you made it like your 12th edition goal, you make it so that everyone who came into the game from 11th from having a wonderful new intro system that everyone's really happy about, you then go, boom, Dungeons and Dragons campaign, but it's for a 40k army. Like, Crusade should be something that we're all celebrating and love playing and want to talk to each other about, and it's just squandered.
It has a lot of similarities to me of like, so Magic the Gathering, you're playing, standard or modern or whatever, and that's like the normal, and then you've got EDH Commander, and that could be Crusade.
Yeah.
It has so much potential.
I have this take that I think is maybe a little hot, but I'm not quite sure 100%. So there's a lot of people who are like, the game has lost its enjoyment. It's not the same game as before. It doesn't have that same kind of make your own.
It doesn't have the same soul.
Well, that, but also like make your own battle type thing that like 7th edition and before had is often the take there. It's become too sterilized. And I think it misses the forest for the trees type thing, because I believe that having a fundamentally cleaned up game system that everyone can pick up and play instantly is substantially more important than having a system like that that's more lore rounded. And particularly, a lot of people will have that kind of feeling where they think, oh, there needs to be more of the ability to roleplay there. And my first thought is always, brother, that's on you. You're the one role-playing, so roleplay more.
But people want support for it. It's an enabling process, and it's something that's so easy as a company to make money off of. Like,
Yes.
this is such a free win for GW to do this, of like, you've got your good, easy to access, well-balanced intro system that's simple with combat patrols replacement / 40k proper competitive legal play, and then you make series of D&D type books for playing Crusades that is actually like pushed and makes people want to play it and doesn't feel like a money grab with, 1 page of rules in it.
See, that is where I would initially say, but to me, 10th has gone too far away from some of the more interesting lore tidbits of the game that I would want a version of Crusade as the main game. Not Crusade specifically, because it's a mess, but that level of fluff, that level of flavor being injected into the army as a main source, I feel like should be the baseline.
Like 12th edition.
Yes, and then Crusade can get wild.
Yeah.
Then you can make that go crazy. But for the time being, I feel like right now, yes, having a dedicated system is important, it's stronger, and it allows people to pick up games much faster, which leads to more people playing, which leads to more people in the hobby. But at the same time, I do want a little bit more of that stuff injected into it, and especially when it comes down to Crusade stuff, I would like a lot more of that into the individual armies.
That's exactly why I think like 11th won't have this, but I think it's the natural progression after 11th as like your sales pitch of, now we've got all these new people who have 500 points of 3 armies they got suckered into. Let's make them want more of them all. Set up your D&D campaign to grow your army.
I think GW also has a feeling for this being a missing part, because you can see with the new missions, they've added more like asymmetric deployment.
It's true, and it's a wonderful step.
You've got the goals that are completely different. They've got, like playing with twists or gambits or secret missions or challenger or whatever the current flavor is. They're currently trying to push that kind of stuff. There's missions for smaller game sizes. Like, these are all mini stopgap kind of things for the lack of a Crusade or that thematic story-driven narrative part to 40k. But I think with these style of missions, you can add your own narrative on top of it, and it's not the same. Like, it's not a fully fleshed out thing, but I think it shows GW sees the whole, and it is a decent stopgap. But also, like, hey, shout out to Horde mode.
Oh, true. We didn't put it in the show notes, but feel free to steal Horde mode and go to town, because it would be wonderful to not be the one upkeeping that.
I mean, I'm looking at I literally just left to go get my Emperor's Children book, and I'm looking at the stuff. Their Crusade rules are like getting rare ingredients to make drugs.
Yeah.
That's literally their Crusade rules. And like, it's just distilled hatred and army elixirs. And the whole point of it is to find weird exotic items to craft drugs to buff your dudes. And that is so sick.
And I totally agree with your, like, inject more of that into the game proper, and then have Crusade be like full on campaigns, crazy amount of extra shit.
I think it would be interesting if they get to a point with like 11th that they're happy with it, and then 12th is like minor changes, and here's the narrative one. This is what we're gonna go hard on for the entire edition. Seems unlikely, but that would be cool.
Next hot take, definitely getting proper God Codices and Chaos. This is not Copium.
It's not even a hot take either. It's the coldest take ever. It just probably won't happen.
But it just keeps on not happening. We got so close and they fucked it up right at the end. So, do we do the big one?
Yeah.
All right, this one is the one that caused arguing this morning, and I love that it did. And the arguing actually made me go sit down and do some math, and I actually came up with an even better solution.
But Brad is the word arguing is doing a lot of heavy lifting in this one.
True. Shh. Bricky was in fighting spirit.
I was loading my gun. I was ready to drive to Michigan, like 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. I was ready.
There we go. That's how it went.
All right. Fundamentally, we're all in agreement that there is some problem with how damage happens or spillover, like certain high damage weapons only dealing, 1 grot worth of damage.
Yes. This is a problem that 40K has attempted to solve through various means, at least for the last 2 editions, with Blast, with sweep profiles, with dev wounds at the beginning of 10th, finding ways to avoid just copying AOS and having it where damage spills over. It's something that I think would solve a lot of the issues that we keep on finding, where it's like, why do I need the Emperor's Sword to be a 2 damage weapon? Oh, because we want to make sure that you don't end up where Gilliman can't kill 10 guardsmen. You alter it so your damage can splash, so having a giant 1-swing mega sword from Angron or whatever actually can just do 10 damage and kill the whole guardsman just by sweeping through them, or can cleave a tank in half. It lets you make elite things much more elite. You obviously, when we talk about adding damage spillover raw dog like this, you have to do all sorts of changes at a data sheet level, at an ability level, stuff like that. You're not having your D6 plus 6 railgun. Sorry. You change the game around this. Instead of doing the blast and doing the sweep profile that you have to have because it's embarrassing when, Angron can't kill 10 guys because he hits too hard and makes one guy really dead. AOS does this really well, and it's one of the things that we talked about that I think got cut. But we talked about this of like, we've played a lot of AOS and come back to 10th edition, and when you come back to 10th, you start noticing that creak in the floorboards. You notice that the trim's fucked up around the door. You see that bad patch job in the wall from where you pop that hole in it when you drop the TV. You see all this shit happen, and you're like, oh, there's so many little things that you could fix. This is one where Bricky disagrees.
Yeah, I think it's stupid. I like Eric's idea.
I think we both disagree.
Yeah, both me and Eric disagree.
But I'll let Bricky go off.
Attributing AOS concepts to a game that's fundamentally different is silly. AOS works that way because AOS is built for that way, and the idea of rebuilding the entirety of the allocation of damage and concepts in 40K so that damage spillover exists, whether or not it might actually be good, is kind of it seems stupid. I think Eric's fix is the best. Trample damage as a keyword is a perfectly fine concept to me. Honestly, I don't understand the issue that comes down with having multi-splits and different kinds of shot types. I don't see a reason why that's a problem. Like, all right, this fire prism has the 2 big screw you shots and it has the 2d6 of the other shots. Cool. It's got 2 cool concepts. Like, it's versatile. That's neat. I don't see the problem that goes along with it, and the entirety of this thing. Like splash, I think is a fine idea. Like, oh, okay, this is, I don't know, like a defiler, which is a big crab bot. It's stepping on everyone. It's just doing these giant sweeps. Like, all right, its weapon can do that so it can clear some guardsmen or something. You have to reduce its damage values, but whatever. That's something I'm like fine with, whatever. It's not a big deal. But I think it's a massive change to revamp an entire step of the entire game that might not even be better. And it also reduces intrigue in the game, which sucks. So yeah, I think it's a bad idea.
I think the reducing intrigue is incorrect. One thing that it does that I really liked that AOS just handles better than 40K, it lets you move more elite things up the point scale further away from hordes. It lets you feel the difference between different categories of models because guardsmen don't have so much intrinsic defense just by being 10 bodies. It lets you keep guardsmen where they are. You don't make them lower on the point scale. It makes everything else shove up so that you end up with the ability to play smaller armies should you so wish, or you can continue playing 200 fucking guardsmen. But it gets rid of having literally 110 Space Marines in play because they will be more elite than that. It lets you broaden the scope more, and it's one of the tools for that. Because I spent a lot of time wondering why I felt like AOS had such a healthier spread of elite to horde than 40K, where it's horde to slightly different horde to horde of vehicles.
See, there's a big part of this that's being completely missed, though. You say like it moves things up the elite scale, but it doesn't realize the knock-on effect that those elite models are more elite in terms of damage, but they're not more poorly in terms of survivability. In fact, they're less survivable because the idea of things splashing is a knock-on effect to everything.
They're no less survivable than they were if we're talking about the true top end with a tank. It's lost 0 survivability with this change.
I'm not talking about a tank.
I know, but in the mid ground...
Yeah, but like Terminators lose survivability. And
Terminators lose survivability, Space Marines lose survivability, all the things that are supposed to move up in eliteness become easier to kill, which will naturally make the game even more killy, which it's already getting pretty rough.
To explain this, Space Marines only lose survivability against the multi-damage weapons that are above 2. Terminators only lose it above 3 at a macro level. I'm aware there's the minor of like, technically you're taking wounds off the next guy, blah, blah, blah. But that allows you to separate them out so that now Terminators still against damage 2 weapons have almost not changed. Whereas Guardsmen take twice as much from them. Same with Space Marines proper, take no difference, but damage 2 weapons there. Damage 3 weapons don't even affect Terminators in this way.
Yeah, they do. They naturally will. You're referring to if they only fire a single type of damage at something.
Correct. Which again, this comes with all sorts. When you do this change, you do all sorts of little changes to profiles. This is a full way through. Now, what Eric did after Bricky and I argued is he took the fucking wind out of my sails. I spent literally an hour this afternoon going through, checking the keyword blast specifically and where it was placed throughout the game, if you could retroactively change blast rules to not be blast and to instead be damage spill. That was actually really interesting when I did the math on it. And I had the problem of blast obviously isn't on melee weapons, which is why I was like, I want to change blast to a generic word. You and I both landed on splash because fucking brain rot from years of playing RTSs.
Yep.
Let's talk about Hydralisks and the math behind them. But splash is a great generic keyword, which Eric put on his too, you son of a bitch. And that would be a fine way to handle it as a mid-ground, because one of the sticking points with my math is Meltas. Meltas were the problem child when I did the original math for just make it game-wide, simple, this is how it works. New players don't have to learn multiple rules for this, you're good. Meltas became a really bad sticking point from a math standpoint. Changing it so that you now have multi-damage weapons by default that don't splash, and a lot of your like main battle tank weapons just do splash damage, that actually worked well.
You can also add it onto melee, and
Correct.
It's just,
and it lets you add it to melee too.
we add a new keyword.
Yes, and you basically just replace blast and sweep profiles with splash as a word, and then you do some little rebalancing. You do probably just have dev wounds die at this point because it's kind of like a redundant weird thing, and it's always been a problem child.
I don't think that's necessarily true. I think dev wounds can still be fine and be its own unique thing.
The point of dev wounds is no save. The point of dev wounds is not splash.
Well, no, the point of dev wounds was splash. You're forgetting
Right.
dev wounds was added to solve this issue. Blast was added to solve this issue.
Yeah, no, blast was. Dev wounds was not.
Dev wounds was. That's why they had to errata it to not do it anymore, because they realized how busted it was, because they made it unreliably occur. And then anytime you can change math, fucked that, because they balanced it around it being unreliable.
No, that's not why it was added. It was not added to create a very powerful splash mechanic that carried over. It was added to remove saves, and it also did that.
Yeah, sure. I think dev wounds have a spot as they are currently to dealing with saves, and then we just add a new one in addition, whatever they want to call it. Splash is just because, like you said, RTS brain rot. I like tanks.
Yeah.
Is basically, that's like all it does is just write out the damage spills over. We've seen stuff like this with 9th edition's Votann Magna Rail. That's not some like ridiculously off the wall idea. GW has seen this before. It is doable. There still would be some bookkeeping that would need to be made. Like going through profiles and like being like, all right, which weapons actually should get this? And let's make sure we take a look at what the abilities are that they combo so we don't fuck anything up too badly. But it doesn't fundamentally change expectation of here's what damage is, here's what general survivability is, here's how the game is kind of going.
And while we were talking about bookkeeping, it's important for us to discuss, because the vast majority of players are going to be 8th edition, 9th edition, 10th edition only, with the vast majority of those being 10th edition only. The reason we are talking about this at all is because of blast templates. Blast templates is the olden days style of doing this, and they have a huge downside of they slow the fucking game down to a crawl, because if you know they exist, you now want to take 3 hours per movement phase ways, exactly moving your dudes to minimize the chance that they all get taken out at once. The point of this is to get the effect of tank shell hits, everyone in 10 meters dies, because that's how that works in real life. Just the fucking shockwave kills you. It gets you that effect without ending up in blast template land that is hell in practice.
Yeah. We want to make this simple while also still being it makes sense and is good. I do think like your solution could work.
It's more of a 10th edition change where it's a ground up rework. We're tearing down the old game and making a new one like they did with 10.
It is like, this is one of the biggest fundamental changes that you could do to the game.
The sanity check splash version is much more realistic. However, it's also worth noting because, like we said, 10th was super successful. Chances are they are going to make target pinpoint changes throughout. This is still unlikely at all, just happening.
Unlikely. It's not happening. It will not happen.
This fix is not something that we are expecting. This is something that, in general, we know they have constantly attempted to find a way to have the way they want, and they haven't seemed to find a happy version.
I think the only way this makes it is if they're looking at Primarchs and whatever the next Primarch is, and they look at the damages and are like, wow, this is dumb. I guess we could fix it. Other than that specific reason, nah, it's not happening in 11th.
And thank God for that.
This is Bricky's boomer moment. It's very strange. I have zero issue with it, like going from 40k to AOS and back, of like, it is not a negative change in any way.
I mean, to you it isn't, but like you kind of consider that this might somehow make the game more enjoyable, which to me, it's just completely rewriting the game system for the sake of rewriting the system. I don't think it makes any genuinely noticeable difference to improve the game in any way. It will have massive knock-on effects to the survivability of large amounts of units, and there's a question to the point where like, oh, a bunch of guardsmen survive because they're a bunch of guardsmen, and the assumption that naturally is a bad thing. Like, why can that not be a major point of strategy? Drown the people in dudes is extremely guard.
Because that makes the entire game that. Because when there's no downside to drown the board in guard, you have to drown the board in Space Marine bodies. The game ends up balancing towards the fact that there is no negative to this. That's why you end up with 3-point Space Marines.
Realistically, it's more, that's why you end up with 300-point Primarchs.
Yeah, well, there's that too.
As much as Space Marines do get cheaper from that, you get the true elite motherfucking badass Primarchs that are 300 points. And it's like, well, all right, cool, bro.
Oh yeah, they're just a big Space Marine.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want the true elite, you go to like the Demon Primarchs, and those are a fifth or more of your army.
What Fulgrim are you looking at?
Not everything is supposed to be Nagash, you know?
No, but having any of them would be nice.
Nah, see, that's the thing, is that like it's a problem that's trying to be solved that isn't a problem right now. Go find me the lists that are winning extremely well that are spamming nothing but Marine bodies. Show me the fact that Ultramarine Gladius is off the back of 4 vehicles, Gilliman, and like 2 squads. Or like look at the guard lists and find me a 500 guardsman body that's winning stuff. It's just not.
The problem isn't the guardsmen, it's the knock-on effect of where everything else ended up balance-wise to get to a point where that wasn't the case. That's why we have such low point models. That's why we end up where everything is a fucking horde, because there's no sliding scale between any of these. Like, there's no downside to just going smaller.
No, the reason why everything is a horde is because Games Workshop balances with points before they ever balance with rules until literally this edition.
Yeah, well, this is a design level thing for people who don't do game design in the audience. There's a known effect where you get far more negativity for increasing the cost of something or doing something negative to your player's experience than you get positive from making it easier on them and making it cheaper or whatever.
Everybody hates nerfs.
Yeah, everyone hates nerfs, basically. But it's like much more vitriol than that. It's like people are like, yay, a buff. People will bomb your office for a nerf. This is why the only time you tend to see point hikes is at edition starts, and you still see Reddit explode with people mad. Oh my god, my army is now smaller. I have less shit. How am I going to solve this? My opponent is going to bring 5 times more shit than me, forgetting that everyone got the exact same change. change, and it happens every edition start, and that's why you do it once. And then for 3 years, your only recourse is to buff things. That's why you always concern yourself at an edition start or at a big rules change of like, this is my only chance to do big point hikes, nerfs, structural changes. And then after this, it's happy you get more bonuses. Everything is cheaper, everything is better.
So Bricky, you brought up the idea of like things need to change at like the ability level and like that kind of thing as opposed to just like points. And I do agree, and I think that adding a keyword like splash would be that ability kind of thing.
Oh, I'm with you.
As opposed to
Yeah,
just
I
like,
agree.
oh, here's a long-winded version of it. Or how about we just add a fucking keyword to like a few data sheets here and there that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, Eric.
And it still helps the problem. Like I said, when I did the math afterwards, it works pretty well as a mid-ground.
I think we're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. I think we have a correlation and causation issue, and the issue comes down to the general method of how Games Workshop does their balancing involving points and how things will always get cheaper across the edition. And, you know, normally lists go up 200 to 300 points when a new edition drops for exactly the reasons Brad mentioned. But I am not of the opinion at all that my 120 guardsman list is a fundamental problem for the game. I consider that to be ridiculous. The splash idea, great one. Think it's a great concept. Think it would work well. Plus, it also adds another thing to another knob. I love as many knobs as you can add, and therefore, you know, it becomes flavorful. Certain units having it kind of is represented in a certain way, and that's really good.
I think it's pretty easy for people to, even new players, to like really grok what it's doing as well.
So next, coldest take of all time. This one is a freebie. They are absolutely going to do what 4th edition did with proper documentation and rules writing and having actual sections with subsections. I even did this in Horde mode because it's game design 101.
And like cross-referenced.
Cross-referencing between rules with subsection names. It's literally how rules should be written, and I can't believe that this still isn't how 40k is written.
I'll be severely irritated if they do not do this.
It's like the easiest thing. Just do this. It worked.
It isn't necessarily easy. Putting together proper structure can be difficult, but it's not that difficult, and it is such a benefit. It looks professional too.
For one that's not on our show notes here that I thought of that we didn't add yet, this one has a little bit behind it from the current 2025-2026 chapter approved 1K game format existing and being thought about. I expect this will be the case. We will start to see the game balanced with 1K games being a real thing they expect you to play, specifically as a follow-up to the main thing of the edition being Spearhead 2 Combat Patrol Replacement, whatever it ends up being called. That will be like number one, all the suits care about, make sure people are buying these combo boxes and getting stuck into the game system. Number two is trying to find ways to grow from there. So then, okay, you bought this, how do I get you to buy the next thing? So I think 1K games is going to be something that we actually start seeing proper balance, having it take into account.
No, yeah, like I was saying, like the stopgap of narrative stuff, like smaller missions than 2025, 2026 chapter approved, that's just going to continue to be used as transition type stuff going on there. And it, because it works so well, and there's no reason it should have taken this long to get to that point. So yeah, totally agree. And yeah, I mean, they're gonna do something like Spearhead. They have to. It worked so well.
We'll get to the whole section below. It's the idiot proof one. All right, so Eric, you've got one here that I love that I didn't have time to put, but yeah.
Yeah, so character customization is something that like we've clearly brought up a few times, and I think everybody knows like it's not the most amazing currently in 10th. But to be fair, 9th edition was likely overwhelming for newer players. So I feel like it would make sense for them to bring back a few things here and there to allow for some additional character customization without going full just throw rules at the wall and we'll figure it out like 9th did.
I actually feel like I have a slightly different take on that, but keep going. I disagree with the 9th edition was throw everything at the wall, do whatever you want. I actually think it's the reverse. At 9th edition was far too complicated to get results, if that makes sense, because of the warlord traits, relics, how the system worked with extra CP to get extra ones and all that.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying like, I'm saying from a rules, they threw every idea at the wall and was like, the players will figure it out.
Oh, I misunderstood what you mean. Okay, fair.
No. From a player aspect, that was like, GW just threw everything, and it's like, I don't know, man. I put it in the Wiz Builder, and it says it's good. I guess it's probably good. should.
Yes.
I don't think they're going to go that far. I think they're going to open it up a little bit, but it'll be sparing. So like we had brought up the war gear customization, like in sections kind of thing. I think that there'll probably be, it probably won't, because like they're probably realistically just not going to do this. But I think if they were going to do this, they would add a section that has enhancement options that cost points for specific units, which means that you can remove some of the bloat from like your subfaction detachment that are focused on like the high call. That literally only targets the call. Just put it on the fucking sheet. All right, great. And they've done some ideas of that, especially like the Imperial agents that like you get to make your fancy unit, but we don't need a detachment to do that kind of stuff. We can just put it at sheet level. It doesn't need to be on every single sheet. It doesn't need to be multiple options for each one. A little bit. We'll just dip our toes in the water.
I have questions. How is it different than war gear for what you've just described? If you're talking about doing it for normal data sheets at the data sheet level, isn't that just war gear?
I mean, I guess, yeah, it basically would be, but I think you can like add abilities and like...
I can think of a guard version of what you're probably thinking of. There was like a relic that you could take in the guard codex called the Barbaran's Key, and it can go on like a sergeant of a squad, and it lets you do an uppy downy. And so one of the big strategies was you'd put it on a Castrican squad, get the big buff from Lord Solar, and then fling him over there, and it cost whatever it cost. And so I mean, it's not war gear, because war gear assumes the change of all the weapons you're taking.
Yeah.
Whereas this is me opening up my sister's codex, seeing 6 relics, enhancements, whatever you want to call it, and then for 5 points I get the surplus of the Saint of the Holy Order of Death or something. And it basically means that every time one of my sister models in that unit dies, on a 6-up I do a mortal back to you. And then it's 10 points.
And we make it a like an enhancement where it is 1 per army. Kind of like in 9th edition, we had this with Thousand Suns had it on a character level, and we had it on Drukhari with every time you took like a mega version of your HQ, you got to make 1 of your normal Drukhari troops into the super troop variant.
Yeah, the Hecatrix Blood Brides.
Yeah, exactly. Blood Brides. That's a perfect example of it. Yes.
Yeah, Blood Brides are the Trueborn Cabalites and stuff like that.
So something more like that for like, hey, for plus 30 points, you can have a Trueborn Cabalite unit, and the Trueborn Cabalite unit gets this change.
Yeah, and like it doesn't have to just be quite as boring as war gear.
Sure.
You know,
I agree with
it's not a great way to say
because,
it.
Because this is something we talk about with one of the things that myself and other people who liked the knobs and turning and list building that war gear offered and individual model addition to a unit offered, right? We lost that, and it made it really awkward when you're like, I'm 50 points away, even including like my 2 enhancements that I actually want. I'm 50 points away from a next list, so I should actually swap this unit to a different one and just add a whole extra unit. If instead you were like 50 points, I could do this upgrade to this unit and this upgrade to this unit, and like that brings back some list building without having the WYSIWYG bullshit and the, oh god, I built my model wrong, that makes new players unhappy. It's actually a really solid middle ground.
And again, it doesn't need to be on literally every sheet. Like,
yeah, a couple per codex.
We can dip our toes in it, see how things are going, and we get some customization going on again.
Plus, it solves the final points situation, like the 1985
yes.
or 1984 for that matter.
Ooh, spooky.
Locking me up.
So, yeah, I mean, just a couple other like quick ones. I want fights last back. Just do it.
Fights first, fights normal, fights last from 9th.
Yeah, just fucking do it. It's not going to happen, but just do it.
Look, I don't hate the idea, but it feels like just random addition.
It's just like there's been enough times that I look at like certain flavor and I'm like, well, that would just work better if you just gave it fights last.
Yeah, that's fair.
Honestly, no, I'm with Brad on this one. I'm don't want that extra complexity. We finally did 9th edition figuring out who fights with what was so annoying.
The fucking Death Guard relic bullshit.
Oh, it was so rough.
This guy gives an aura, fight last, and that guy points at guy and...
All right, fine.
No, I mean, I agree with you, Eric, that our current situation is not the best and it could be improved. I don't think doing the 9th one is the way to improve it.
Yeah, that's probably true. but
I feel like you can make fight last, so there's a 3-phase fight first, fight normal, fight last can work. I feel like 9th edition's implementation was ass.
there has to be a way to make it clean and just like, here's the actual rules, here's like, but it's a lot of work. It's probably not worth it. It's certainly not gonna happen. When I was putting these notes together, I was like, you know what has happened to several times when I was thinking about flavor? Fucking fights last. I want it back. All right. I need to okay. On a similar vein, below half strength to just be at or below in every instance.
Oh,
Yes.
I agree.
Fuck you,
Absolutely.
Please, God. Yes, absolutely.
No one
Hollow Martyr's,
disagrees.
Hollow Martyr's stocks are so up right now. They're so up.
At or below half, absolutely. Errata it now. Don't even wait.
Yeah, I don't care what it breaks. Just do it.
Anyway, why do you have indirect fire? What do you have?
So I wonder if they're going to make changes to indirect fire just because they've had so many problems with certain units with indirect fire.
I feel like we have the same problem, which is they solved it in 9th, and then 10th they unsolved it and went, oh fuck, go back. Like, just leave it as it is. The current rule works, assuming we're not changing the balance of the game, in which case then you have to change it too. But the current rule works.
And like, it works well enough that with points and like whatever, it's fine. I feel like there could be something there that they're gonna try and fiddle with it again, but I don't know what it would be because I think we're fine right now.
I do think you patch it to be more official because it was like a post-edition start slap back in type patch. I feel like you clean it up, but
In a similar vein of like, there's been problems with things, but like we eventually got to a fine spot, terrain. And again, like this is another one. I don't think they're gonna really do changes, and any change that they did do is gonna have just as many FAQs needed, or just as many, oh, we broke this thing, we need to make a change again. It's just another one of those, like, it's been problematic. There's probably people that have thought about making a change to make it better in 11.
it's definitely something where anyone who plays large amounts of competitive play or just in general have played a lot, think about it and its problems and its icky facts, and anything to do with 1 inch from a wall and wanting to bash someone over the skull. There's all of that problem, but at the same time, I feel like there's no major shift GW has pressure for when, to be honest, this is the best they've ever done terrain wise. Like, they figured it out like 90%. Let's not fuck it up trying to fix the 10% that's left.
I like terrain's volume currently.
Like how much there is.
Yeah, I like its density. I like its kind of stuff like that. I do not like the terrain's variety, both in visuals and in rules. However, I don't have good ideas for this, so I can't really speak on it.
Yeah, it's definitely, we asterisk it and you say like, we know there's something here that we probably want to tweak, but like, we're only tweaking on this one. We're not reinventing it and going like, oh God, we fucked it up real bad again. It's back to like several editions ago when terrain was ass. They've like finally mostly figured it out. We don't shift too hard from this on what is supposed to be like in our minds, a minor addition change.
Honestly, I kind of hope that they don't try and like fix it, as it were, and we just, mostly keep what we have, because it mostly just works for new players once they like have the basics. It's only like the edge cases that you're trying too hard.
Yeah, there's some weird stuff. First floor windows, 1 inch from wall, that type of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like the 1 inch from wall is like, new players don't give a shit, and that's fine. So like, it's unlikely that they're gonna make sweeping changes to terrain, but it's another one of those like, oh boy, I imagine somebody brought it up at some point and was like, I can fix terrain.
I know exactly where it got brought up. We're going there later.
Yeah, I expect more tokens as well. That whole thing, I expect new models to have them. It's just an easy win. Overall, just works well in the gameplay. It's great to sell those like little cute add-on models. It's just free win there. It's great. I love them. I expect to see fast amount more of these.
I would say this isn't an addition thing. I just think that's something they have learned manufacturing / engineering design wise of like, make cute token thing, shove in box, get free PR. Everyone loves it. And it seems to be a positive rules wise for the rules team to have access to it for doing whatever they want for an ability.
This is one of those situations where I feel like the financial incentive of it and the gameplay thing mix in a good way. Like, 5 Eldar Rangers did not fully fill the sprue, and so we can add a little aspect shrine token to go along with it to fill the sprue, and then write their rules around that. And in this situation, it works, and that's a good way to do it.
Yep.
It honestly, it just just works.
I love Skyrim.
Not everything in 10th needs to be changed.
Okay, so I'm actually quite curious about our discussions in terms of strats this time around. My first initial reaction to your I hate strats thing was disagreement. I don't think strats suck. I think strats are cool. I think basically abilities and having a resource to manage is in its own right an enjoyable aspect of the game.
Thumbs up, I agree with you.
However, there was this conversation or whatever about having strats per battle round that are lost at the end of the battle round.
Yes.
Which I am so much more for, because if I'm taking my favorite army ability in the game, not my personal favorite, but the one I think was utilized the best, it's probably the Eldar one. The reflex tokens or whatever they have that don't last the whole time and they go away. That whole concept makes it work out as a really interesting concept. And my first idea, especially the one that Eric posted, which is have a couple core faction stratagems like Armor of Contempt or Rotate Ion Shields. And then immediately after that have detachment-based ones and a couple core strats.
Eric, we didn't even fucking talk and we nailed it, baby.
I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty good. I think the depletion of the battle round is really smart. I think Vex is still an important thing that can be used, and also it makes you want to use more fun things. Because if you were, for example, only had 1 CP left and it's the end of the battle round and you have nothing you're gonna spend it on, then you know what? Maybe I will re-roll my shots with this cannon.
Hell yeah.
Because like that's fun and it lets you do the thing. And so you know what? I'm on board with this one. It's just a little hard to determine when I see the headline and it says stratagems suck, #fuck strats. And I didn't necessarily expect this.
Stratagems suck, #fuck strats. So this is something I have felt through the whole edition and way more in 9th. Dear God, did I hate them in 9th.
They were not new player friendly at the very least.
One of the patrons said it best when I was giving them little teasers of what we were going to talk about. Someone said the perfect line, which is, these two facts are true. 1, stratagems in 10th edition suck. 2, stratagems are the best state they've been in 10th edition. So to give a deep dive on how we would do strats from a more deep level change, AOS 4th edition works mostly the same way as 10th from a strat standpoint. Commands are slightly different than strats, especially on a technical level. I don't like how commands work versus strats, but the point is mostly the same. I do think the ability system from a bookkeeping standpoint doesn't change the rules but makes them more readable, and I would be fine with that being how we handle the same thing we do in turn structure for 11th edition versus 10th edition.
I could take it or leave it, honestly.
Yeah, but like it works for so let's talk about how that works. For anyone who doesn't know how 4th edition functions, instead of having like a phase that vaguely tells you can do stuff in it, every phase is based on abilities. All of your units can use abilities in each phase, but can only use one ability that is labeled core during that phase. So in the movement phase, examples are, you've got an ability that is normal move, you've got an ability that is run, you've got an ability that is retreat. All of those have core, so you can move or you can advance, but you can't do a move and an advance, obviously, because they both have core. And then they have more abilities that you can have, like reaction abilities, which are abilities you can do in response to an opponent's ability. And then there are ones that cost you a command point, which are commands, which are strats. These are like in the enemy movement phase. They have one that's called redeploy, but don't think 40k redeploy. What it is just doing a shitty Eldar move after your opponent has moved. So you can do like a d6 move.
An easier example is at the double, when you choose to run, you just move 6 instead of rolling for it.
Which just costs you an extra CP when you do your advance roll, well, run roll. Importantly, because of this system, they have basically moved the majority of what we would think of as stratagems to be part of the ability system and be commands in there. That part is basically core strats. You can just port that right over. That I'm totally fine with, because I do think abilities are easier for new players to read and like understand from a like first time reading a rulebook and have no functional change. So that's how you can handle core strats, even though I fucking hate core strats, and we'll talk about it, our current core strats. But my final setup for strats is what Eric has in his section here, which is you have some core stratagems. We rework what they are. Then you have stratagems that are each army gets a pool of them, be it 3 or 6 or whatever, that they always have, preferably only 3, because I'd really like to lower the amount of stratagems possible at any point.
I was thinking 2 or 3.
I was thinking 2.
2 and 2, 3 and 3. The point is to do universal ones that are the core identity strat you always want your faction to have, and B, your faction's defensive one or offensive one of choice, like Armor of Contempt or Rotate Ion Shields.
So like AOC or Rotate, yeah, like those are just add it to the faction level.
Yeah.
If we do 3 strats, I would enjoy a defense, an offense, and a utility.
Yeah.
And you make those be your, like, this is brand identity. And then you have detachment ones, and these are flavorful as fuck. These are designed solely around that detachment. These are not where Armor of Contempt fucking goes. This is where you put things that are crazy.
And I think you could also like replace one of the core ones with an upgraded version that's the Made or whatever like that. Like there's still a bunch of design options there, but
One thing I do not want to steal is command abilities that are tied to War Scrolls and AOS. Do not steal that idea. It sucks ass. I hate it. I do not want to get a stratagem because I took Calgar. Holy shit, I hate that system.
no, make it detachment subfaction focused. Like that's a good enough granularity.
Yeah. But anyway, for how they do the CP for doing their strats, every battle round, both players receive 4 of them. Technically, they're modifiable through other means, you know, like you can get an extra one, whatever. Underdog gets an extra one, that type of shit. But both players get 4 in air quotes, and you have the battle round to use your 4 CP. That's it. At the end of battle round, any remaining ones disappear and you get 4.
Yeah. So this is one that I feel like that's probably not going to happen, but I do think it will eventually for a couple reasons. The primary one, it's the Master Ball problem, the hoarding syndrome, the I have that thing and I don't want to use it because it could be more useful later. But if you have the system that AOS has, which is, you know, you get your points for a battle round and then they go away and it replenishes, you're going to be more likely to actually use these points. And I think this is just a psychological thing that will be beneficial to the gameplay. And it also, like, it still works pretty well with Vectoras and all the CP generators and like all that stuff still work. It's not like you're losing anything.
Yeah, all that gets to exist in this system. So here's some spice though. Speaking of core stratagems, Bricky, are you aware of the fact that in Age of Sigmar, there is not command reroll?
I was not, but that doesn't really, like, I don't much care.
It's pretty shocking though. That's one of the, like, it doesn't what?
I mean, no, that's fine. I mean, CP reroll is like, whatever.
It's one that we hilariously shot called on accident in our How to Make a Codex That Doesn't Suck episode a year ago. But basically, it's the you can get rid of command reroll, but the charge phase has to instantly change because you're going to find out that charge rolls are awful math-wise, weight-wise, in win percentage.
It is the most important role.
Yes, a charge roll is like literally 40 rolls worth of weight, if you're unaware of this fact.
No disagreements here. The charge roll is by far the most important thing.
Because if you fail a charge roll, you have failed every hit, wound, and damage roll thereafter.
And probably died. What is the...
Yes.
Yeah, because the thing that you fail to charge is going to kill you, probably.
And you probably didn't manage to hit the distance needed to land on an objective and, you know, all that stuff as well. Yeah.
What is the charge roll like in AOS?
It is the same thing, except they added a single stratagem that is reroll, but only for charges.
God damn it, dude.
It's the unsolvable problem. We've talked about it before of you can take CP reroll out of the game, but it must remain for charge rolls. Because charge rolls, you have to change the system. So other game systems obviously have other solutions that are not command reroll. One of them is you automatically charge 6 inches and then you roll a d6 to see if you charge 7 through 12. This means that 6 is an auto win charge. The game system alters because of that, obviously, at a math level. But again, that's one solution. Other ones do like one-page rules just does you always get the full 12-inch charge. If you're within 12, you will succeed the charge.
That seems a little ridiculous for me, but yeah.
It requires a bunch of other changes.
Again, the point of one-page rules is to be ultra simple. I don't like one-page rules. People keep asking us to do that episode. I don't think it's a perfect system by any means, but it is free.
A lot of the other solutions have problems of their own based on reliability. There's no, like, at least as far as I've seen, there's no, like, this is the best, this is clearly what everybody else should do.
But it is hilarious that without CP reroll, they immediately went, wait, shit, we need it for charge roll specifically, though. So going through the core strats, and in my wonderful world, which ones would get shot in the head immediately, Fire Overwatch gets to stay. Fire Overwatch is totally fine. One thing that I like in AOS definitely with 4th edition went a little more crazy with their, for them, command abilities, but we're going to keep calling them core strats, on what they do to make you want to fucking use them and not hold your damn CP all game. So their Fire Overwatch equivalent is literally during your opponent's shoot phase. Obviously, your opponent gets to activate first, then you get to choose if you do activations, whatever. You may just use a CP to shoot with a unit at -1 to hit.
I don't think that works for 40k. The delta between the power of shooting in AOS to 40k is a vast ocean.
It's interesting though, because it gets rid of the flamer Overwatch thing, because suddenly flamers being the auto hit versus hitting on 6s only. It's an interesting middle ground. And I do wonder if you change it so like Overwatch is always on 5s.
I like the flamers.
I love flamers. Look, I am the flamer guy.
I think Overwatch, after the amount of adjustments it's been through, I think is in a fine enough state. I would not make a big change to Overwatch overall, personally.
Yeah, that's why it's my only one that I have marked green on my list of like, you can completely without changes move this to 11th on my new structure.
I think this is in a fine spot for core, but I think there would be a couple factions that could use a better Fire Overwatch as one of their strats. Just replace it with this is that, but better.
Oh, sure. Tau could have a better Fire Overwatch or whatever. Sure. Command reroll.
Are we actually going to go through every single core stratagem?
They're going to get faster.
Fine.
For the big ones, command reroll is the other big one. This one is the problem with the system of you get people holding on to their CP going, what if I have to reroll a save? And they'll hold it until the end of turn and then go, oh fuck. So by moving it where it's only the one for charge rolls, what AOS does instead of command reroll in other cases is they have two abilities that is all out attack and all out defense. All out attack, instead of reroll a single hit, is +1 to hit rolls for this unit. All out defense is +1 to save rolls for this unit. Obviously, I would make this be go to ground's equivalent technically from the save roll standpoint. I actually kind of don't like go to ground because it's really gross, but I do like that go to ground is infantry only. But I might just change it from the cover and 6-up invuln to just be +1 to save rolls for an infantry unit. That's fucking it.
I mean, it's just AOC, honestly, in a way.
Yeah, again, it's just a nice universal one.
I feel like Rapid Ingress is supposed to be faction specific. This does not feel like core strat to me. Never has felt like it.
100%. Rapid Ingress is literally, we made Terminators and we will sell Terminators at a core level, along with half the other strats in this fucking edition.
Ironically, Terminators are not even the ones who really use it much.
Yep, but it doesn't matter for how it ends up. It matters for why it got written in the first place. But yeah, Rapid Ingress is absolutely something that should be a, hey, Grey Knights have Rapid Ingress, or Custodes, or some shit like that. Or for one, it's at an army level. For another one, it's in a certain detachment.
Yeah, and I think the lack of option there is why we got it at core with 10th current. You don't want to waste one of your 6 strats in an faction for every detachment to allow this. Whereas if you can add strat to the faction, like, you know, rule, then yeah, you can add Rapid Ingress to a couple factions, and then a couple detachments of other factions get it, and it's like, oh, it makes sense in these spots.
And because Bricky is mad that this is taking too long, I'm going to say, other than Heroic Intervention, you just make it a full charge roll that you can just use for 2 CP on your opponent's turn, just like AOS does it, because it's based, and it's basically the same thing, but cooler because it's got way less hoops. Other than that, I just kill all the other ones, because Smokescreen is fucking stupid. It literally exists because Space Marine players wanted smoke launchers to exist, and they knew that it's a wasted strat that should not be anywhere in the edition, so they threw it in core. Grenades don't exist on multiple armies in the first place. Get rid of this shit. Tank Shot is absolutely the premier thing to either be at army level for Knights or detachment level for Iron Hands or whatever, or a specific one for Tyranids for monsters in a Monster Mash detachment. That's where Tank Shock belongs.
I like Tank Shock, but I think it needs to be a little different. But that's also, I'm talking with the guard in me is talking also.
Yeah, you just delete Epic Challenge, you delete Insane Bravery, hopefully.
That one I hope happens even if we don't change anything. Just get rid of that one.
My spiciest one, because I know a lot of people think counteroffensive should stay core, I think it should be for army defining purposes. All the melee armies getting counteroffensive is fine. Your World Eaters, your Emperor's Children, your Blood Angels, counteroffensive can be there, but Tau doesn't need counteroffensive. I'm aware Tau players use it. I'm saying it's that one's, again, if that one ended up core, it's fine, but it's one that I think works well to show this is a melee faction.
It feels like it would be fine at core still. It doesn't actually remove any, like, you're not getting anything by adding that granularity to the other factions. Like, there isn't really anything you're gonna do to counteroffensive to make it more interesting.
Sure.
It's the knob. It's a fucking toggle.
Yeah, I think it's too needed. Like, I mean, when I see someone with only 1 CP, I'm like sick, and I charge 4 things to them, and I'm just like, all right, I now have 4 things, and you just lost 4 things. Like,
that is an interesting difference. This is an AOS versus 40k thing. Charging gives you the chance to choose first, right? After that, there isn't a fight first for charging. It's literally your opponent now chooses the next unit in AOS. It's an interesting difference between those two systems.
I don't think I would want that for 40k.
Yeah, wouldn't you therefore only ever want to charge 1 thing into something at a time then?
Kinda, sorta, no, because you have to remember you have 4 CP per battle round and your opponent also has it, and they can literally just roll a charge roll during your turn because that's a stratagem.
It plays a lot different.
It's an interesting difference. I don't think there's a reason to do it in 40k, but it is something where it's like that's why there's some difference in how AOS versus 40k players will hear that. But anyway, into army and sub-factions rule structure. Eric definitely talked about one of my key things, which is the change to where stratagems belong. I want sub-factions to at most have 3 of these fucking things, maybe 2. I do not like that so much of should I play this sub-faction comes down to, well, it's going to determine all of the strats I have access to.
I agree. I think that a base volume of strats, enhancements, and Eric, your great idea of like mini war gear, I think at minimum every single faction should have those 3 things. And like I said before, I like 3: utility, damage, and defense across the board. I mean, even the armies that are notoriously lower defense, like Drukhari, you can very easily do lightning flash reactions.
You just make it be their fucking move, shoot, move shit.
Yeah, whatever it needs to be. And so from there, then of course, I would say maybe 2 to 3 generic enhancements would be nice, and then about 3 to 4 war gear ones that are 5 to 10 points max. And then from there, I'd be pretty happy with that, and then probably take a stratagem away or 2 away from a detachment. I don't think detachments need 6. I think 4 is okay.
I literally go down to 3 or 2. I think they should be flavorful, very fun things that are in no way necessary. They need to be a 5th as important as they currently are, like from how important it is for your stratagems to be good in your detachment.
I think the main thing is that more of them opens up the concepts for some more stuff. I think 4 is the happy medium for me, because like I'm looking at the Tyranid subturning assault one, and 4 of those stratagems are like, dang, those are cool, awesome, flavorful, neat. And then 2 of them are kind of whatever. And I'm like, all right, let's just trim the fat, get rid of that, and then we'll have the main things in the army.
Sure. Then we get into Psychic and Prayers, which is a different part of the army construction here. We'll get into that in a second. But from enhancements, because I don't want to leave without talking about this. I don't know Bricky's thoughts on enhancements, but Eric and I fucking despise them. 10th edition is so goddamn boring because you can't make your cool character anymore. It's so fucking miserable. I just want to be able to make the cool, awesome, unique character builds that you could make in 9th edition.
I agree. My issue is that those characters deleted God.
Most of them didn't.
No, that's
Sometimes
not.
they
No,
did.
most of them did.
Sometimes they did.
They really did.
A few of them did, but the vast majority were just cool, weird characters.
I disagree.
There was a decent amount of times that even those cool characters, if they got in the right situation, deleted God.
Yeah, they really did. I agree with you. I want more ways to customize our characters. I want like trait plus relic again.
Yes, and that's what I want to say with enhancements is I want to have 2 layers of them. I want to go back to relic plus warlord trait.
I'm fine with that. I don't think it needs to be relic plus warlord trait. If anything,
However you break it down, like I'm not going to be picky on how we get back to it, but the ability for me to go, here's the character that I really want to screw with. I have multiple knobs. It's not just pick this enhancement because it's the best one in the list.
I'm fine with that. I think the idea is like you have your enhancements that, well, I mean, it's the thing. It's like you have your enhancements, then you have your Eric war gear type thing, which basically is relics and warlord traits, if I'm being honest.
Similar idea.
Very similar. I think it's a fine idea. I just want to make sure they all cost points. If I'm going to make my canoness elite god, I need the Canoness to be 100 points instead of 50.
And I think that's one of the things I like with this system is you can be more freeform if they all cost points and let them go wild. Because if your opponent's showing up with only 1900 points to your 2k points because their last 100 points is making God deleting Canoness, nuke that bitch. And like competitively, it won't affect the game. But from fun with friends, I get to get drunk and yell at Eric, the Demon Prince is coming, brother. Like you get to do that still in casual play and have fun. And then in competitive play, it doesn't matter because that's a bad idea.
No, I think it's a great call. I think I'm very happy with it. I just, 9th edition was too killy. This edition started off less killy and is getting really killy. If we're going to make characters even more killy because we're giving them the ability to become turbo mode, I would at least like it to cost an arm and a leg.
I'd like to lower their baseline. I'd like to lower most baselines to make things less killy, but then let them get too near where they are now using crazy combos or make them the unkillable abominant from 9th edition, like the go funny full defense on all your picks and go try killing that idiot.
Well, that was what I was going to say. It's like not every enhancement, relic, warlord trait, whatever we want to call these, needs to be more damage. We can have things that are more defensive and like, yeah, obviously the most competitive lists are probably going to go for the damage option because you're able to, utilize your core strategy from a macro level in the game. But
honestly, they're not even going to go for that. They're going to find all the teleporting options and the shoot while actioning and the advance in actions and the utility ones that score you 100 points every game.
But like, there is room if we move some things into the core army rule that we can have additional things at the sub-faction or the detachment level that allows for that kind of stuff and like in a flavorful way.
Agreed.
Without going too far.
And I don't think you have to go too far. I loved 9th edition.
And that's too far.
It had problems. It was far too far. I loved it. But 10th edition is within fixable reach. It's not like some rewrite it all. The general structure is fine. I want to improve it, but it's fine as a whole. One thing is we have to get rid of the very useless, I know upper management mandated this. I know 100% someone who has never rolled dice in this game required it because that's exactly how this works in every industry. The fucking all of your rules on one page. Front and back.
Oh, yeah.
The 10th edition slogan of your army rules fit on one page. One page rules now means Warhammer. Get the fuck out of here, one page rules. Get ready for Trench Crusade rules next edition. We did hashtag one page rules. We can now flex how big the rules is to be multiple pages when required, especially because that lets you put proper diagrams in or put in an example picture because you're not worried about a fucking page limit, but you still keep it short. You don't purposefully add. It's just you no longer check, oh shit, I'm at 1.2 pages. I guess you don't really need this rule, Blood Angels. Fuck you.
Yeah, I think especially if we're going to bring back Psychic with prayers or whatever.
Yeah, there's no way. You have to add at least one page.
That was fun. It did its thing. We can expand a little bit. We don't need 18 pages, but we can go beyond one page. We can make it a little bit more.
And that gets into my last thing, by the way, which is probably why Bricky and I are on different numbers for the strats. Because in my stratagem weight, I replaced it with having a prayer or psychic spell per detachment, plus the ones that are in your core.
So that those would make up for the...
Yeah, they're basically the same thing, but different.
I mean, that makes sense. I can understand that.
And to be honest, I think that we can get away from the perfect structure. We can have some factions that maybe they only have 2 strats, but they've got a couple extra spells.
This is exactly what we're going to get into. This is, it's how 9th edition worked. It was one of the things I liked with 9th edition sub-factions. They were not perfect, but 9th edition sub-factions let different armies have different things as bonuses in them. So like in Thousand Suns, every detachment came with a spell, which was unique in that edition. In this edition, and we say they all come with one, and maybe you get less of everything else, but Thousand Suns gets 3 extra spells.
And like, there needs to be a certain amount of balance.
Right. You lose things to get things. It's what you get.
But it doesn't need to be perfectly balanced, the exact same every way for every faction. It doesn't need to be that simple.
Yes, we talk about this with you have a budget. Whenever you're building something in a balanced game, you have a budget to spend. If you spend it all on spells, you have to be worse in other spots. If we're spending our detachment budget on a bunch of spells, we're going to have less of our enhancements in it. We're going to have less of our strats in it. So on this note, let's talk about the big one that we both immediately stole from AOS because we love it. Psychic and prayers.
Pseudoscience.
Pseudoscience bullshit.
I'm in full support of pseudoscience.
Whoa.
Quote him on that. Put it on a shirt.
Poor Hammer immediately fucking canceled.
Poor Hammer. Nurgle in the goop.
Oh, God.
The fucking Nurgle shaking hands and then washing his hands.
This candle smells like my vagina. Nurgle scent.
So anyway, psychic and prayers. All right, I'm going to explain how this works in AOS because AOS 4th fucking nailed it. Copy, paste. It's so good. And it's basically what Thousand Suns did anyway. In AOS, your army has either one psychic table and prayer table, or two psychic tables or two prayer tables, depending if you are fuck you magic or fuck yeah magic. So in this example, Space Marines has chaplains and has librarians. They get both, so they get a 3-and-3 split. Thousand Suns, fuck yeah magic, all magic. Sisters, all prayers. And the way it works is you basically go, my entire army knows these spells. And just like in Thousand Suns in 10th edition, that's how it works of like, if you have someone who can cast a spell, they know the whole list, but you can only cast each one successfully once per turn. It's a simple system. It works. It lets you make fun, splashy spells, and it lets you make more niche ones that are more focused on one aspect in your detachments. So you can have a crazy, weird spell that does something to your Trigons if you're in the Tyranid Trigon detachment and then you want to bring a Psyker so that he can cast stuff on the Trigons, right? That's the basic premise of it. And this gets into one of the things that we groaned about during the 10th edition previews was the defense that we're getting rid of Psychic because people complained when they played Necrons that it wasn't fair that the other guy had a Psychic phase. Or your guard player was mad that the other guy did all these spells for 5 minutes and he couldn't do anything.
I mean, it was annoying, but like, I was never like, where's my guard priest things?
But from a lot of casual standpoints, it was annoying. And I understand why they were mad. But the solution was not take away toys from those people. It was, we should probably look at how you could give toys to everybody. You also get rid of the psychic phase most likely and just move most of this to the command phase, except for maybe a couple special ones, but just move them to the fucking command phase and be done with it.
That's the easy way. There's no reason that you need a separate phase. Most of them can be in command, and then you can sprinkle the ones that need to be specific timing wherever. So one of the things in AOS was like, but Khorne hates sorcery, and they're basically like, yeah, don't worry about the exact nuance. It works out eventually. Prayers, magic, it's all shit that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, in AOS, Khorne gets prayers because Khorne despises magic because it is stealing from the gods. Prayers is asking the god and getting their approval. Khorne believes in consent.
Not to be murdered. Yeah, hey, Khorne, like, can you sign this piece of paper so that I can stab you in the face multiple times?
True lawyer.
Facing someone is consent for a fight.
But I mean, it does make sense though. I mean, like, even Khorne, he does weirdo, like, not magic, but like magic things. There's a great little excerpt in the 9th edition World Eaters Codex, which is great because it's the 9th edition World Eaters Codex.
That codex sucked, to be clear. It's just, it was...
No, the lore stuff was neat. And there was this like little lore tidbit about these 8 bound or maybe just like really powerful berserkers. And they would just go to a planet and like massacre like a million people and just go to town with it because the planet was unprepared for it. And then Khorne would just make this giant lake of blood. They'd walk into the lake and they would emerge out of the lake on the other side of the lake on a totally different planet. Because Khorne is like, all right, next
do it
one,
again.
on to the next. And then they would do it again. And then it would just keep happening, you know? And so like that kind of stuff.
It shows off the like general idea of like every faction can do something. Even like Necrons, you can have technology that's so advanced it's basically magic. All right, great.
Necrons literally had this in 8th/9th edition. Catan powers were literally psychic spells, but you had to bring a Catan. 9th edition actually fixed this with the Plasmaster edition to give you a small little mage who just cast the shittiest lightning bolt you ever did see.
Yeah.
Rip bozo to my one that was in my Crusade. But anyway, so to wrap up our discussion, there is the final thing we need to talk about, which is the entire point of 11th edition, on paper at least, in everything that I would expect in reality, which is the replacement of Combat Patrol with thing that won't be labeled Combat Patrol.
I do have one more thing I do want to stick in here that I've been waiting forever. So, I mean, we can discuss this. Like, I know you don't like leaders very much. I like leaders as a concept. I would love to do away with the when leading a unit thing that I have to keep checking every single time.
1,000%.
Well, one or the other. Like if you're gonna do when leading a unit, make it everything does that, or get rid of it altogether.
I 100%. That's why I hate leaders. I hate them from a like they make you purchase things that I believe in 12th or 13th edition will be a bad purchase in the same way that you argued with other stuff with tanks. But what I really hate is like I want to make my cool giant wizard character guy who's super special, and it's like, oh, I gotta have him with 5 dudes who bum around with him because he doesn't get any of his bonuses unless he's leading.
See, I'm fine with the bumming around with the dudes thing because it makes for a dynamic army, and because we've had character spam problems before.
It's fine to be the correct thing to do, but I want to have the fun thing still available for when you want to go character heavy Thousand Suns and just have 12 wizards be your army.
See, I
And like
get
it's
that.
not going to be good, but it's going to be fun as fuck.
No, but that's the problem though. It's like an agent problem where then one time it will be good and it'll be the most toxic thing on the planet.
Yeah, but welcome to competitive play.
It happens often. But anyway, I like leaders. I think either you do one or the other. You do away with the when leading or you make it all when leading and you balance it accordingly.
I love the idea of get rid of the when leading so that leaders just, here's the character, it gets this buff, but it gives it to its entire unit it's leading in addition. So like leading is better.
On the secondary part that I care much more about is that I think they should just completely do away with the leaders. You choose when to attach them. I think in the army building construction thing, that's when you do it. And then immediately after that, the thing I'm looking for is purely you point balance the leaders based on what they're leading. A technomancer should not be 80 points leading warriors. It's 80 points for wraiths, and that makes sense. I feel like without a doubt, that whole step should be removed. When you're building a list, you put leaders in the unit or you don't, and they're pointed accordingly for that. There's no, like, a Judiciary in Stern Guard is not a Judiciary in Assault Intercessors.
I absolutely agree with the reasoning behind it. The logistics is a fucking nightmare.
That's exactly where I am. The absolutely we change it. Leaders is at fucking list building. It's so stupid it isn't. 1,000%. That's such an easy win. The different points I don't disagree with, but I also fear it's going to cause confusion when you're adding it to your list and you're like, oh fuck, I added the 60 point Cryptek. I connect it to this unit and it's 80 points and that screws up my, like that's going to cause feel bads. And I wonder if it's just like we have to live with the fact that Crypteks with a subpar unit are a waste of points and we just live with that fact.
I disagree. I think you click the Cryptek when you add it to the list. You click the Cryptek and then it has the options of leading this, or by itself. And the points are right there.
Again, I support that being a thing. I worry that there will be arguments against it in actual like development. And at least changing when you lead them opens the door for that as a control valve later. Even if it doesn't happen at edition start, like it gets argued away then, at least then we have the door open to fix them that way.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with like it is a problem, and that would be a great solution.
I think the logistical things are not as bad as it may seem, but it's a thing that I think would be very interesting to try out.
Yeah, it would actually make a lot of balancing things easier, and also like it would help internal balance a lot.
And on the leader thing, while we're here, one of the things I wanted to bring up in this episode that I really didn't have time to put in these show notes, when they showed off the idea of the Tyrannid Ravener plus squad that could lead the Tyrannid Ravener squad, I want to see more expansion of leader in that way. I want to see things like Tyrannid warriors can lead Hormagaunts and give them some sort of buff, where now they're connected to the squad of Hormagaunts and in some way make that better, whether it be Synapse or whatever they're doing. Opening up these options where it's like, make it where Lich Guards can lead Immortals and you get a better switch hitter squad or something. Like little things like that where it's like the leadership system as a baseline is fine, but it has room to be something beautiful.
There is still a lot of design space for leader.
But anyway, the last major thing of 11th edition is obviously going to be combat patrols replacement. Most of us would argue it's the reason for the edition to exist.
I mean, the reason the edition exists is because it's time.
Yeah, it's time and we need to increase profit margins.
But Spearhead did a fantastic job, and now 40K needs to step up.
Yeah, Spearhead is more popular than AOS 4th from basically everything I've heard from that angle. Like AOS 4th is alright, kind of boring, just like 10th, whereas Spearhead is beloved because it's like everything people have wanted and didn't know they wanted this bad, with the quick games, the excuse for you to go do that expense that you probably shouldn't have done but you've wanted the excuse to do. So now you walked home with 500 points of Seraphon.
I even enjoy the fact that they're adding more alternate spearheads for each, faction. It's not just one and then the next one is replacing it. It's like, okay, you've got two different styles.
Pre-packaged, simple intros for new players, but having variety of options for experienced players with collections to play with people. Shorter games so that you get an actual, in our practice, it's more like an hour, but they always argued it was 30-minute games. There's some real fast dice rolling if you're doing 30 minutes, but we'll say 1 hour games, which feels fantastic. And it's just a very fun, compact game to play. And it's a very surmountable task hobby-wise to just have your new spearhead. Everything about it seems to have been a giant success on the AOS side. And given that it was what they were trying to drum up with 10th edition and failed miserably because Combat Patrol is not well liked, 11th edition is 100% going to replace Combat Patrol with legally distinct Combat Patrol with a new name, and it will be Spearhead, but with whatever name we come up with.
There's no particular reason it won't work in 10th, but if they use Combat Patrol or they have a poor marketing for it, it'll fail.
Yep, which is why you just swap names, because then you don't have any of your negative association. That will be the reason. Just like Spearhead had the Vanguards that Spearhead replaced, and you name swap so that when people Google it, they don't get people bitching about Combat Patrol for years. And when you Google, hey, is this a good value? You can't find any of our videos that say, no, this is not a good value because we said Combat Patrol.
Right.
That's why it'll have a different name. Now, when Eric brought up terrain, this is where I actually had my head. Terrain rules with ruins, they're not perfect, but they exist in 40k and are usable. Spearhead, as a game mode, is based around being like literally 2 tiny walls and 2 rocks, just to have some flavor on the board. It's basically Bowling Ball World.
Which works for AOS given ranged weapons and that kind of stuff. That bit loose when it comes to 40k.
And everything is custom balanced in Spearhead. It is not its data sheet in the real game.
True.
The problem with 40k is when you make your Spearhead box and there's no terrain in it other than 2 tiny half walls and 2 rocks that have no rules.
Yeah.
So that's where there might be pressure to do minor terrain changes, is because of Spearhead. And wanting, again, Spearhead is meant to be an intro to the full game of AOS. It has differences, but they are digestible differences that make you go, oh, when you get to the full game.
It's like I'm learning the system, and then when I go to the full game, it's that system, but with some extras.
And a few things just work different. But you understand that it's because you were playing the micro game. I expect that if anything happens with terrain, it will be because of whatever's replacing Combat Patrol.
Yeah, that would be a great spot to test those kinds of changes, though, at the very least.
But in general, for those who don't know Spearhead, it was basically the beginning of 4th edition. They went, hey, we made a new game mode that is for all of those intro boxes that are up on your shelf at your LGS. You grab it off the shelf. You have a completed army for that game. It will have custom rules for that game that are balanced against all the other ones and is actually balanced, unlike Combat Patrol where they said that and then you had 700 point armies versus 300 point armies and it was always a slaughter. And then they actually did patches to it and like updated it and added more to it and gave us more options for them. It's a wonderful, wonderful addition to Age of Sigmar that 40k 100% should steal. And I am sure every single suit at the company is like, you are stealing that. You are putting all of your attention on that. Fuck the main game. This is how we make trillions, baby.
It really did feel like a pre-built deck.
Yeah, the thing that I most think of is Magic's pre-built EDH decks for new players, the precons.
And like it is still more expensive. It's like twice as expensive as the Final Fantasy precon.
It used to be outrageously different expense levels. Now Magic just decided that it's worth $1 trillion, so it's not that much more expensive than a Magic precon anymore.
Yeah, but it's similar ideas of like this is your easy way to get in, and it's like a contained system, but still lets you expand into the full game.
And seriously, as experienced players, I would 100%, if you walked up to me and said, let's play Spearhead or let's play 40k, I'm picking Spearhead every time because here's the difference. 40k 10th edition kind of bores me, and the game game is going to last 4 fucking hours if you're not super experienced. Spearhead, we're done in an hour, even if I'm like, okay, it's something that is targeting newer players. It doesn't have all the depth that I want, but like I get its purpose and I'm here for an hour and I'm going to have some fun, hang out, and done. It's real good for that, even as experienced people.
Yeah, I mean, shorter, easier things are shorter and easier, and I'm all for it. I probably won't play a ton of it because it's just not my. I mean, I might play it.
You say that going in. We were like, we're going to play Spearhead as a test when they came out just to see if it was worth the hype. Because we were like, honestly, we were like, this is going to be hype bullshit and it's going to be garbage.
We were expecting it to be combat patrol.
Yeah, we got addicted to it. It's real fun.
No, I mean, I'm sure it is. Like, I believe you. I just, I think I'm too deep.
Yeah, and like, there's no guarantee that a 40K version would hit the same way, but I think GW's absolutely going to attempt it, and I think they've got a decent shot at putting something together. But yeah, I think that's basically what we've got. I mean, there's still all the factions. Like, we could go faction by faction and be like, this is the call for that one.
But guys, we crushed this. It's only been 3.5 hours.
Only, thank God.
We flew through this. We could have done the whole thing in one sitting. But if you want us to do a sequel episode that Bricky probably won't be here for just because it'll be a nightmare to get him back 3 times after this episode.
And this next one would be like 8 hours, so.
But if you want a sequel to this where we talk about like, yo, let's come up with army ideas for 11th edition for each of the factions, tell us. And if we get a bunch of people who think it sounds awesome, we'll definitely do it in a couple weeks here. Anyone have last thoughts?
Not really. If anything, I just really hope that they make those changes to the stratagem type economy and, leader points and a few other things. But that's about it.
Again, I don't think any of us are expecting giant stuff to actually occur.
No.
I think it's mostly like hoping for a couple little smoothing over here, giving us some depth here, and that's it.
I'm bringing back Psychic.
And making rules fucking free. Or at least digital, even if I have to subscribe. But damn it, they should be free.
Before we head out, don't forget we've got book club. We're targeting for like July 8th. That's The Elemental Council by Noah Van Wyn. So make sure to read it if you're worried about getting spoilers when we do the book club review.
Other than that, just remember we do have merch. Bricky, say we have merch.
They have merch.
All right. We also have a Patreon at patreon.com/SullySingleton where you can support very stupid ideas like this one and join great patrons like Honey Badger.
We also have patrons that pay us so much we have to shout them out every month. They are a pulsating ball of pure energy,
A suspicious looking guy.
Absolute Chad,
A Dachshund.
Adrian Frank,
Alex Fuja.
Amdragon,
Amos.
Andreas,
Another hairy Sasquatch.
Ava Warrior Princess,
Biggs the Purple Necron.
Blubbles 180,
BRB, gotta snaz my wagon. Oh, Bricky, you're subscribed to us?
What? Because of the snaz wagon joke?
Oh, I
or-
guess it's snaz wagon. I thought it was
Yeah,
Zoomer
it's the
words.
snaz wagon, man. Come on. Don't you know your orcs?
I thought it was a Zoomer word.
I feel like there's an innuendo going on there. Snazzing your wagon.
I mean, that does sound like an innuendo.
Carnivax,
Christopher Gagliano.
Christopher Stevens,
Chromavale.
Colin H,
Comstar Wizard Tresnor.
Craig Judge,
Cube 1359.
Dairy Sorcerer Addicted to Mana Potions,
Daniel Field.
Das Goopy,
Dominic Colisico.
Dylan Baker,
Edward Lawrence.
Enchanted Galaxy Cat,
Ezelvor.
Faye,
Flawless Oyster.
Gathering Clouds,
Gear Overlord.
Geet.
Hoss Hammond.
I hired my Ludas to steal his buggy, but they split into Princess.
The process, bro.
Oh, in the process.
I read the Space Wolves Codex and all I got out of it was wolf, 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 wolf.
I wish we had better looking Catachans.
Elindi.
Infinite Fest,
Isaac Hall.
Jack Gabing,
Jacob Gibson.
Jared DePerna,
Jason McMaster.
Jolene,
Justin Udacek.
Calix,
Caden Moore.
Kentorb,
Krishna Chanamolu.
Lucas,
Landon.
Lord of Chaos,
LSJ.
Madison Ramanama,
Matthew Tsushima.
Michael Melcher,
Mitchell.
Mixolodius,
Burnt toast.
Moist Toast,
Monkey 218.
Morpheal 55,
Neil Breen's balls. Yes, I saw his balls.
Nemesis, the Noodle Blade,
Nick DeFeo.
Naughty E.
Novi.
Pierce forgot about changing their name as a bit for a while.
Prince of Plagues.
Proteus 7331,
QBN Geek.
Quellen,
Rock.
Ross Warlock,
Rothana, I have an obsession with ATTE.
Saft,
Sriracha Sauce.
Shax's Pod Otter,
Solanite.
Struggle Bus,
The Mailman.
the most pleasant mother pheasant plucker,
The Crusader 13.
the Fish Boy,
Thrango.
Tom McGrath,
Vangriff.
Vartha Mark,
Victoria Angel.
Warhammer Caleb.
Woodstock.
You are invited to the Salt City GT in Syracuse, New York, please.
Why so mad too?
And Zimbabwe.
We also have producers who we thank every week because they keep the lights on around here. They are 3D Frank,
Aaron Grabowski.
Atherion the Collector of Things,
Agents of the Imperium is the best faction. No, this is not a Patreon name. This is my 100% honest opinion.
Bender,
Blitzed Brain.
Brandon Janke,
Broken Reaper 45.
Corvus,
The buggy blew up.
Dr. Lace.
What are they doing?
What?
I said, what are they doing now?
God damn it, I am getting so sick of answering this fucking question. Fulgrim pegged me in the back of a Cracker Barrel.
That's actually part of the Crusade book.
It's in the Crusade rules and everything.
Gilgamesh versus.
Halo Gamer in 2005.
Imagine how much furry porn Bjorn has seen or done.
Yon Geisy.
Kiwi Fruitbird.
La Bloop Bloop.
Mr. Squigums.
Mr. Fantastic, hashtag Where's Mike's Baneblade.
NJ Harlan.
One-Eyed Hive Mind.
Pizza 00100.
That Moity.
Trigon and Moloch Stonks.
Victorian Batman.
And War Game Simulator. Thank you so much for supporting the show.
All right, and on that note, we're out of here.
Sounds good.